Back-to-school savings are officially in session at Tanger Outlets. Shop tax-free August 2nd through 6th and save up to 70% off the latest school styles. The best of apparel, footwear, accessories, and more. Save at Nike Factory Store, American Eagle, Gap Outlet, Crocs, Under Armour, Banana Republic Factory, and hundreds more. There's always something happening. Discover the latest fun and events all season long. Tanger Outlets, your savings destination.
Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
Yeah.
97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
Now, live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
A Thursday edition of the Sports Bash starts now. 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Use the hashtag SB Live. What's up, everybody? Holy mackerel. We got so much going on. With the Eagles being back at camp, it just adds to the chaos of putting a show together. And we got a good one for you today. We got some news on our Happy Hour Friday show tomorrow. Next week, the one after that. So we got some stuff happening for you guys out there. We've got Phillies, a couple trade proposals that I definitely want to get your thoughts on. You know, it's always good to hear where the fan base sits. So I'm going to throw a couple trade proposals your way, and I want to see if you guys are in on these proposals or out on these proposals, and I'll tell you where I sit on those proposals. Coming up in just a little bit, Bob Wankel tonight is going to talk some Phillies with us at 5 o'clock for Bob tonight. I haven't talked to Bob in a little while, so maybe we'll get a little insight on how he's feeling about this team after the last couple of losses. And, you know, it's the way they lost the games. That's, to me, is the big thing. So let's set it up. Evan Cohen, Unsportsmanlike. He's going to join me at 3 o'clock today. They were talking about Aaron Rodgers, I guess, said there's like 8 to 12 teams that can win the Super Bowl every year. Unsportsmanlike put their list of teams together. They had 7 teams on that list. I'll give you my list, and I got a bone to pick with Evan Cohen about it. 3 o'clock today on the Sports Bash. Andrew DeCecco, Eagles news and notes. He's been at training camp the last couple of days. And, of course, our division previews continue with the NFC North. We're going to take a look at the North Division. I do want to start with the Phillies' loss yesterday and what's going on right now. You know, where this team sits is comfortable. They are 9 games up in the division. They are 3 wins, I should say. 3 wins up on the Dodgers for the best team in the National League. They are 64-38. The Dodgers sit at 61-42. I will say, you can readjust and reevaluate your thoughts throughout a long season. I feel like this is going to be the run that reevaluates some people's thoughts. We'll see what the Phillies do. If at the end of this little stretch, okay, they play Cleveland, a very good team. They play the Yankees, who have been having some trouble recently. Seattle's a good team. The Dodgers are a good team. Arizona's starting to come on. That stretch of games is going to take us to August 13th. If they get through that stretch of games and there is still a cushion between them and Atlanta and everybody else, then I think we have our answers. If they get through that stretch of games and things aren't going so well, we're going to figure out whether or not this team is a legitimate World Series contender or not. Now, I also preface that by saying things might not go your way. You can start to struggle a little bit, much like, I don't know, the Diamondbacks last year, who made it to the playoffs with, a 84-win season and then ended up getting to the World Series. There are pitfalls, there are bumps, and there are many different ways that you can get to where you're going in life. And same thing in a long Major League Baseball season. There are many ways to get there. You might get off to a great start. You might pull back to the pack. You might, have a little couple injuries that you need to persevere through. 162 games, it's like you've got multiple personalities in 162-game seasons. Some weeks, your offense is great. Some weeks, your bullpen is great. Some weeks, your starting pitching carries you. Some weeks, your offense struggles, and that's why you go cold a little bit. Sometimes your pitchers don't have it. Sometimes your bullpen starts to hit a little rut. It all adds up at the end. And right now, I think the Phillies' perception and reality of what their bullpen is the highest focus. Who is the bullpen? You have 2 all-star arms in the back end of that bullpen, Jeff Hoffman and Matt Strahm, neither of which anybody predicted would be all-stars when they went to Clearwater in February. You didn't get here and say, hey, man, the Phillies are going to Clearwater and they got this amazing bullpen with Hoffman and Strahm. You looked at this bullpen and said, okay, Hoffman was pretty good last year. Strahm, okay, he kind of seemed like somewhere in that bullpen mix. I don't know if you looked at him as a setup man or a closer or a key part or just a guy or what. But nobody thought that those were the top 2 guys. You had Alvarado, who has been a pretty big piece for this team since coming back from the minors back in 2022. And then after that, there was no reason to believe that this bullpen was going to be a lights-out, lockdown bullpen. You're hoping that Hoffman and Strahm became all-stars, and guess what? They did. But now the question is how confident are you in Hoffman and how confident are you in Strahm? And do you have to upgrade over those 2 guys? How many people listening to the sound of my voice right now think a team that wins the World Series does so with Jeff Hoffman or Matt Strahm or Jose Alvarado getting the final out of the biggest game? You know, the numbers suggest that they can, but the situation has never been done before for those guys. Jeff Hoffman has never been on the mound in the biggest game, and neither has Matt Strahm, really. Jose Alvarado has, but not consistently. So I think when we look at less than 1 week to the trade deadline, the perception and the reality of the Phillies bullpen gets pushed to the top of the charts. Because, yeah, they can add another starting pitcher, but they have Zach Wheeler, who has performed in the playoffs. They have Aaron Nola, who has performed in the playoffs. They have Ranger Suarez, who has performed in the playoffs. They have some known quantities there. Their offense, while inconsistent, has guys who have performed in the playoffs. They also have guys who have gone ice cold in the playoffs. But the one area of this team that has no track record in the big moment is their bullpen. So does that put the bullpen to the top of the list? You know, Strahm has just 3 games out of 42 where he's given up 2 earned runs. He has a whip of 0.846. It's outstanding. But he generally has those numbers in lower leverage situations. That's not to take anything away from Matt Strahm. All outs have to be recorded, and he's gotten key outs in many games. He just doesn't get the last 3 outs generally. Jeff Hoffman has 1 game in which he's given up 2 earned runs or more, and just 3 games where he has allowed 1 earned run in 44 appearances this year. Hitters are hitting just 172 against him. Jeff Hoffman has been outstanding. The problem for Jeff Hoffman has been he's generally not getting the last 3 outs of the game. Now, he has gotten the last 3 outs 9 times, but that's not a whole heck of a lot of pressure as opposed to closing a game out on October chilly night at Citizens Bank Park or somewhere on the road. He's got 13 holds, so he seems pretty good in that spot. Is that the better spot for him? Soto, who lost the game yesterday, but he's pitched really well. Do you trust Soto in the 9th inning of the key game in a playoff setting or even a World Series? I have the answer for everybody out there. No, you don't. And I'll tell you why. Soto has great stuff. His stuff is probably just as good, if not better, than everybody on the team. He throws 100 miles an hour. He's just been dominant. The whip is too high. And the problem with guys with high whip is that they're always in high leverage situations. You're putting unnecessary runners on base because you don't command well enough. His 1.56 whip is not good enough to be a closer in the key moment. You can't have a walk in the ninth inning and have a runner on base with a one-run lead and just hand a guy a base. So Soto, I think, is out of the mix there. And then there's Alvarado. In May and June, Alvarado, 27 games, with only one game where he gave up 2 earned runs or more. He gave up a total of 6 runs. In May and June, Alvarado looked like he was the best bullpen arm in all of baseball. But in July, he has given up 7 earned runs. And in 7 games, with 2 of those outings, he has allowed 2 or more runs. So is this just, hey, Alvarado's kind of hit the bad stretch of the long 162? Or are we starting to see the deterioration of a bullpen arm that has been relied on a lot over the last couple of seasons for the Philadelphia Phillies? Think about this. Jose Alvarado was acquired by the Phillies as an afterthought. I mean, when they got this guy, nobody thought Jose Alvarado was going to be a key member of your bullpen. Heck, I don't even think anybody knows how the Phillies did acquire Jose Alvarado. I mean, if somebody, without looking, texted in the trade that the Phillies made to get Jose Alvarado, I'd probably fall out of my seat. By the way, they got him right after Christmas in 2020. You probably don't remember, but it was a 3-team trade. I'll give you a couple of hints, all right? It was part of a 3-team trade between the Tampa Bay Rays, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Phillies. Those were the 3 teams that were involved that got Jose Alvarado to Philadelphia. Here we are 4 years later, and he's turned into a key figure of your bullpen. Now, think about this. You got Jose Alvarado, and in 2021, he pitched in 64 games. In 2022, he pitched in 59 games. Last year, he pitched in 42 games, and now this year already, he's pitched in 43 games. There's a lot of innings and wear on a bullpen arm. I know it's not starter innings where you're up around 100, 200 innings, but the day-to-day, the night-to-night, where they have to call on this guy, is it starting to catch up to him? Look, Alvarado's now 29 years old. Keep in mind, on top of all those games, in the postseason, Alvarado has added another 20 games to his mix. You think about this. In the 2022 Wild Card Series against the Cardinals, he pitched in both games. In the series against Atlanta, he pitched 3 times. In the series against San Diego, he pitched 3 times. In the World Series against Houston, he pitched 4 times. In the Wild Card against the Marlins, he pitched once. In the series against Atlanta, he pitched 3 times. And in the NLCS against Arizona, they had a call on him 4 of the 7 games. They have called on Jose Alvarado a lot and in all different situations. Are they just running out of moments for Jose Alvarado? Look, you can look up and down at the numbers. This bullpen is pretty good. But there could be one guy missing from the bullpen. It's a very good bullpen, but is it a bullpen that can win you the World Series? You know, most of the people listening, you're either in 2 camps, right? You're in the camp of the Kansas City Royals have stunk your whole life. Or, like, you remember them being good in the 80s, and that's it. They had that wild, weird 2-year run where they won a World Series, and then they lost the World, or they lost the World Series, and then they won the World Series. The Royals came out of nowhere and won a World Series. Think about that. The Kansas City Royals won a World Series not too long ago, like 10 years ago, 8 years ago, like 2016. But how did they do it? They had the best bullpen in baseball. For 2 years, they just ran those guys out there, and when the game got to the 6th inning, that game was over with those guys. Holland, and, you know, they just shut down games. And then those guys just were used so much, they just got ran into the ground. And the Royals crashed and burned with them. Those guys are nowhere to be found. Those relief pitchers, those Kansas City Royal teams that went to the World Series and won a World Series, they did nothing after those 2 years, essentially. Are you in a situation with the Phillies, guys like Jose Alvarado? Now, Alvarado, I would say at the top of that list because he's been a part of the last 2 Phillies runs. Strom and Hoffman, they haven't. I'm not saying that they're wearing down in the workload. I'm just saying, can you trust them? They've never been in those situations before. Those are the big questions for me when it comes to the Phillies bullpen. And then, you got Kerkering. Listen, I like Kerkering. You guys know that. But I wonder if the Phillies are starting to wonder how high of a leverage situation can they put Orion Kerkering in.
To your point about the amount of pitching these guys have done this year, Mike, Jose Alvarado has appeared in 42% of the Phillies games this year. Hoffman, 43, Strom, 42, Soto, 40. That is 4 players who are 40% or higher of the games that you have played this year. That is not a sustainable rate for all 4 of those guys. Another reason why you need another guy to take a little bit of the load off.
So I ask you guys out there, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Starting pitching. There's a lot of reports out there, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later on in the show. Bob Wankel's going to join us at 5 o'clock tonight. We're going to talk about it. I saw 2 interesting trade proposals today, one of which has the Phillies landing Tarik Skubal. Now, you might say to yourself, why would the Phillies need to get the American League Cy Young front runner? He is not only the front runner, he is far and away the front runner. He's like minus 250 to win the Cy Young right now. So why would the Phillies be involved in trade talks or thinking about trade talks? Yesterday we talked about they have interest in Garrett Crochet and Jack Flaherty, both starting pitchers. Is that the number one focus? Starting pitching? We all know about the offensive limitations, the right-handed bat, all the platoons that we're starting to see. Or is it the back end of the bullpen? 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Luke in Atlantic City says the reality is whenever the Phillies take out the starters, I start to worry. He says they definitely need a lights-out closer. Luke, see, it's not when they take the starters out that I start to worry. It's more like yesterday, for instance. They took out Nola. They go to Kerkering. Generally, I feel pretty good about that. I like the way that the plan went yesterday. Kerkering in the 7th, Strom would pitch the 8th, Hoffman would pitch the 9th. That seemed to be their plan yesterday. Unfortunately, one of the problems with the model of today's baseball game is when the starter can't get out of the 6th inning or has to come out in the 6th inning and you turn the bullpen over, you now need 3 pitchers to do their job. Someone has to do their job in the 7th, someone has to do their job in the 8th, and someone has to do their job in the 9th. Okay. Some days that works. Not every day. So yesterday, Kerkering, who I like, doesn't get the job done. He just simply didn't get the job done. And now because he didn't get the job done, Strom has to go into the 7th inning to get Kerkering's mess cleaned up. And now because Strom pitched the day before, you're not going to go back to him in the next inning. So now you move Hoffman from the 9th up to the 8th. Now you might say, why didn't you pitch someone else in the 8th inning? Well, they had 3 right-handed batters up from my recollection, so they decided to go with Strom in that situation. Is it raining out, by the way?
Oh, it's downpouring.
Is that what I'm hearing right now?
That's why I kept looking up at the ceiling, like, what is going on?
That is not the news that I was looking for today. All right. So,
breaking news. It's raining.
609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. That is what I would be looking at. Can I find that bullpen arm that at the back end of my rotation? I think a right hand, like we're looking at a right-handed bat for the offense. I think a right-handed power arm is something that would be optimal. Now, I know Tanner Scott's a left-handed pitcher, so that adds to some intrigue there.
I will give Nick Earnshaw credit for this because he's the one who brought the name up to me last week when we were covering you, Mike, here on the Sports Bash. He brought up Estevez from the Angels. He's a right-handed guy. He's 31 years old. He does throw some smoke, but he's a good bullpen pitcher. He's their best bullpen pitcher on a bad baseball team. Does that guy fit the model of what you would be interested in?
Well, all closers on bad teams come to the list, right? All guys who are closers on bad baseball teams, they're always on the list.
Sure.
So, yeah. But again, and it's a good name by Nick. I've heard him bring it up a couple times. Do you feel comfortable that in the ninth inning of a playoff game that he can get those last 3 outs? That's a different out, man. That's a different out. It's different closing games out for the Angels. He's got 20 saves this year, 0.74 whip. Those numbers across the board are fantastic. 34 innings pitched. He has 32 strikeouts, so not a big strikeout guy.
That's a little bit of a problem.
Yep. So that's something to think about. What are you guys thinking out there? Let me know. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. We're busy today. We got a lot going on, and we want you to be a part of it. As always, on the text board, hit us up over there. Don't forget, tomorrow, Happy Hour Friday, we're going to be live at Giuliano's. Yes, Giuliano's in Egg Harbor Township is hosting Happy Hour Friday. And I told you, so we're celebrating 15 years of the Sports Bash all summer long, Josh, right?
Yes, sir.
We're going to be at Giuliano's tomorrow, 2264 Ocean Heights Avenue, EHT.
Love it.
Giving away Smashing Pumpkins and Green Day tickets every hour on the show. So come out, sign up to win those. We're going to be doing random drawings all throughout the day. Here's what else we're going to do, all right?
But wait, there's more.
There is more. Throughout the summer, it's the first time we've ever done this, okay? Come out for Happy Hour Friday tomorrow, hang out during the show, and we are going to pick 10 people that will be qualified for this year's 99 bottles.
Whoa.
That's right. You don't have to try to call in. You don't have to try to work your way on the phones. You come out, 10 listeners tomorrow who stop out at Giuliano's and hang out. We're going to get on the list for this year's 99 bottles.
These are coveted spots.
Coveted spots. 10 of them. Going to be handed out tomorrow for this year's 99 bottles party. Stop out, have a beer with the show, enter to win tickets to Smashing Pumpkins, Green Day, and 10 listeners tomorrow are going to get qualified for this year's 99 bottles party, which, by the way, I already know the tickets for which game it's going to be. How about that?
Ooh, fancy.
Yep. Maybe we'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. Celebrating 15 years of the Sports Bash tomorrow at Giuliano's with Bud Light drafts at $3.50, $4 neutral vodka seltzers. That's all tomorrow. Happy Hour Friday on the Sports Bash. Coming up. All right. If you were listening to Unsportsmanlike this morning, how many teams can actually win the Super Bowl? They said 7. I've got more than that. My list is next on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.
It's
Back to school savings are officially in session at Tanger Outlets. Shop tax-free August 2nd through 6th and save up to 70% off the latest school styles. The best of apparel, footwear, accessories, and more. Save at Nike Factory Store, American Eagle, Gap Outlet, Crocs, Under Armour, Banana Republic Factory, and hundreds more. There's always something happening. Discover the latest fun and events all season long. Tanger Outlets, your savings destination.
Mike Gill
And I am the voice of the voiceless.
on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
229 Sports Bash. I'm Mike Gill. What's up? So, this morning on Unsportsmanlike, Evan Cohen, Chris Canty, Michelle Smallman, they were riffing on Aaron Rodgers, who said about 8 to 12 teams are legitimate Super Bowl contenders at the beginning of every year. Like a quarter of the teams in the league is what he basically assessed as legitimate Super Bowl champions. They gave a list and really had 7 teams. And we're going to talk to Evan coming up in a half an hour from now, and he can kind of give his side of the story because they did not have Philadelphia as a legit Super Bowl contender this year. on the list? Do the Eagles belong on the list of legitimate Super Bowl contenders this year?
Absolutely. Because if the Eagles answer the questions, yes.
The question, jerk?
Yeah, answer the question, jerk. McEnroe over here.
Yep.
But Greeny mentioned this morning on Get Up. He said, if the Eagles answer the questions about them, yes, they are definitively a Super Bowl team. And I think that's part of the problem, Mike. When we hear from the national media about a team like the Phillies, Greeny's right when he says this.
There's a pretty wide chasm of options here. Like, I agree with Dominique to the extent that if the answers to a lot of the questions come back yes, then I think the Eagles absolutely could be the best team. If some of them start coming back no, I could see them firing the coach in the middle of the season. So it feels like a very wide delta of possibilities.
Yeah, I mean, but to me, I see like his breakdown is accurate, okay? If the Eagles have the problem they had last year, then right. Even with those problems last year, they were 10-1 at one point. They were a legit Super Bowl contender.
Right. And I think the problem with unsportsmanlike, and I'm not trying to put words in their mouth, Evan can defend him and his crew in 30 minutes, but I feel like sometimes there is a bit of a bias against the Eagles with the people on that show, despite the fact that they have a producer who's a Philly sports guy.
What's the bias?
I think that there's a bias against the Eagles at times. I think there's an attitude that, people like Chris Canty have a very negative perspective on Nick Sirianni. Sometimes I feel like
that's one of the questions I want to ask Evan.
Yeah.
Why is the perception of Sirianni so low? What is it about Sirianni that has a lot of people putting – it almost seems that when you ask, what's the problem with the Eagles? Well, they have a great roster. They're loaded everywhere. It's the coach. Was the coach a problem the year they went to the Super Bowl?
No.
So why is the perception of Sirianni so low out there? That's what I'm trying to kind of come to terms with listeners out there. When I say Nick Sirianni, what's the word that comes to mind about him? Why is the perception of Sirianni so low?
And you look at other coaches around the league. Like when Sean McVay lost that Super Bowl to the Patriots a few years ago before he actually won. No one acted like if he doesn't get things together, they're going to fire him like they are with Sirianni, the attitude sometimes. I feel like, you look at other coaches who have been to the biggest game. Kyle Shanahan, he's never won a championship, right, as a head coach. You look around the league. Who are the coaches who have not won a championship? Why don't we not treat Dan Campbell? He never even got to the Super Bowl yet. We don't treat Dan Campbell the way we look at Sirianni.
There's many times when you're the guy chasing, you have more popularity. This is like a wrestling thing. Mm-hmm. When you're chasing the championship, the crowd is more behind you.
Right,
when you win the belt, now the crowd wants to know what they're going to do with you next.
Yeah, it's the Harvey Dent line. He says, you either die the hero or you see yourself, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
So Sirianni gets to the mountaintop and the team loses. And it's almost as if now the perception, because he got there and now he is the foil, which is interesting because Shanahan has been there multiple times and lost every time. And
Correct.
Yet the belief is still that he can get the job done, I think. Same with guys like John Harbaugh. The Ravens,
they haven't been back in a decade.
Because he won one,
right?
People believe that they can do it again.
Mm-hmm.
So what can Sirianni do? He's got to one. He's been to the playoffs three times. So what can Sirianni do to change the perception of him? Outside of is the only thing Sirianni is the only thing he can do win a Super Bowl, and that's the only perception way to change the perception of him.
I guess
I don't know that that's fair.
But I mean, if again, look at other coaches around the league. Do we treat Zach Taylor like this? He went to one and hasn't been back, right? Why don't we not treat other coaches around the league? Why do we not have the same perception of these other? I mean, Dan Quinn is now on his second job in Washington, right? He went to a Super Bowl and lost. But yet people think the Washington is a team that could surprise this year and make the playoffs.
A lot of that stems, though, from they've had such a poor recent past, when they got Ron Rivera, people thought, oh, man, they're finally going to get their bleep together.
Sure. Yep.
Because of why? Rivera took a team to a Super Bowl. So you kind of believe that, hey, this guy took a franchise to a Super Bowl, and therefore he has to be better than what was previous in place.
I just saw another one. Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur has never gotten past the championship game. But yet most people would agree he's one of the best coaches in the league. Look what he's done.
Well, one of those reasons could be that the expectations were not high for Green Bay last year, and that he got them to a unexpected place.
Okay. But again.
Same with Dan Quinn, by the way. You take a franchise like Atlanta to a Super Bowl, you have done something that was not expected of you.
So you're saying that the expectations
I think
may
sometimes
be what
that has
is
to do with it.
affecting
Like,
the view of the Eagles.
But then then it would go right into what we're saying here. The expectations weren't for the Eagles to be in the Super Bowl. The expectations the year before weren't for them to make the playoffs, and he did that.
Right.
And then he followed it up with a Super Bowl team. And then last year, so our perception of Sirianni essentially seems to be based on the final 7 games of the season.
Which I think is unfair. And
The
fairly
final
to the owner.
7 games of Sirianni's 2023 season have usurped anything positive he has done leading up to those 7 games.
And that's unfair. And I think that's why part of it was why the owner kept it. And actually, it's because of those expectations that we're talking about why they should be on this list, Mike. They should be considered a Super Bowl contender because the expectations are what they are.
Cole at LBI says the hate on Sirianni is because he's an offensive guy who couldn't call plays, then gets his system replaced, and just because the players like him doesn't mean he's a good head coach. Sometimes the authority figure needs to ruffle feathers and light a fire under the team's rear end. He acts like a clown on the sidelines, and people probably think he does hold players as accountable as a good head coach should because of his actions on the sideline. You know, the whole because he's an offensive guy who couldn't call the plays, I don't even know that he couldn't call the plays. He just decided not to call plays.
In 2021, the Eagles' offense was struggling, and then he seceded the play calling to Shane Steichen.
But that's what a good leader does.
Right.
He says,
why don't
listen,
we give him credit for doing that?
Right. I don't like we've pigeonholed these coaches, and I think I like a head coach who doesn't have his hand. See, for instance, and I know San Francisco's a bad example because they've been to the Super Bowl with Shanahan, but I think these head coaches that are so focused on one side of the ball sometimes get lost in the sauce on the other side of the ball. I like the Harbaugh style of head coach who just kind of oversees everything. Now, it doesn't mean it's the only way to do it.
Sure.
There are guys who are just play callers who have done well. There are guys who are defensive-minded coaches who have done well. And there are guys who are overseers. So I think the hate on Sirianni is misguided because he's an offensive coordinator or was an offensive coordinator, that therefore he should call the plays. And because he doesn't call the plays, therefore he is a failure. I think that's a little bit I think that is not really seeing the forest through the trees. Because to me, my head coach needs to be a guy that has the pulse of the locker room. More importantly than does he call the plays.
Yeah, because guess what? You can be the greatest offensive mind in the world. Doesn't mean you actually got to ever win a championship.
Listen, when Jason Kelce emphatically comes out and supports Nick Sirianni, that's pretty much way more of a endorsement, if you will, than saying that he acts like a clown on the sideline. Here's what Jason Kelce had to say.
Nick moving to like a head coaching position, he removed himself from play calling duties with Shane Steichen, right? Yeah. That ended up working out pretty damn good. Nick has shown in his tenure with the Eagles that he's going to do whatever he thinks is in the best interest of the Philadelphia Eagles. And he's going to make those decisions, and he doesn't care about how other people perceive it. He doesn't care about anything other than what's in the best interest of the team. And to me, I think players respect the hell out of coaches that operate on that level.
The players respect the hell out of the coaches who operate on the level that Sirianni does. Kelce went on to explain why he thinks Sirianni is one of the best head coaches that he's ever been around, which includes Andy Reid, Doug Peterson.
Nick, and I really mean this, is one of the best coaches I've been around, and talking about coaching situational ball, really understanding what to do in the right moment, motivating guys. We coach things up in team meetings and hold people accountable better than pretty much any other coach I've been around.
Holds people accountable better than any coach I've ever been around. Text message says he acts like a clown on the sideline, and people probably think he doesn't hold players as accountable as a good head coach should. That couldn't be more inaccurate.
Yeah, because this is where we get back to the perception versus reality thing. We just talked about that with the Phillies bullpen in the last segment. People develop a perception of you, whoever you are. You, Mike Gill, on the radio, the head coach of the Eagles, Nick Sirianni. And no matter what you do, they always hold on to this perception they have of you, no matter what evidence might be out there contrary. And by the way, Jason Kelce said these comments months after he retired. He didn't say this while he was playing with the Eagles still. He said this after he retired. So he had no incentive, no reason to compliment Sirianni like this.
Dave in Violence says, a lot of us had low opinion of Sirianni before the Super Bowl. Having that opinion prior to 22 definitely does not help the perception. Dave, but that's the point. You had a low Sirianni before the Super Bowl. He got a team that had no business being in the playoffs to the playoffs. In 2021, I guess that was.
2021, yeah.
His first year. That team had no business being a playoff team.
Nobody expected it to be a playoff team.
But Sirianni, as Kelce pointed out, he'll make the adjustments for the betterment of the team. They were trying to throw the ball. They saw that they didn't have the talent to do it, so they shifted their focus and became a run-first offense. He got a team that had no business going to the playoffs. So at that point, I think people should have said, man, this guy has the respect of this team, right? This guy has the respect of the players in this locker room. They make it to the Super Bowl the next year. So how does a team go from no expectations to the Super Bowl to now nobody thinks the perception of the coach is so poor? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Another question that I just don't understand. Why was Hurts the worst quarterback against the blitz if he's so good situationally? Well, he's also, again, he's not the play caller. He's not the offensive coordinator. You want to say, why was Brian Johnson unable to make those adjustments in the play calls? We had the punt returner. What's his name?
Britton
Covey on the radio with us at the Super Bowl. And he talked about it. He said he thought Brian Johnson was in a little over his head. In other words, he said we would have been better with a more veteran play caller on this team. And that, now listen, you say, why was Hurts the worst quarterback against the blitz if he's so good situationally? Just because Hurts is the worst against the blitz, that doesn't mean the coaches weren't making the right calls. Maybe Hurts isn't very good against the blitz. That's another question that can be brought up.
And I mentioned this before, Mike, with everybody here on 97.3 about how you listen to the people who are not Mike Gill and Josh Hennig who watch tape. Greg Cosell, Brian Baldinger, Jason Avant, Emery Hunt. They all said the same thing last year. There were a lot of throws by Jalen Hurts that were predetermined throws. He did not have the option on certain plays to read the defense and make a better play. So how do I know that some of these plays that people are saying Hurts doesn't know how to read the blitz was because he was being told not to read the blitz?
Listen, we're going to learn a lot more this year. I think we all have... I think David and Violin, we had a preconceived notion, then maybe it adjusted a bit when they went to the Super Bowl, and then it readjusted the last 7 games of last year. I think 4-year sample size is going to be really the determining factor. But why is the perception of Nick Sirianni so poor? We'll talk to Evan Cohen from Unsportsmanlike in 15 minutes. Plus, he says 7 teams are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Are the Eagles one of those 7? Stick around and find out. Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Use the hashtag SBLive.
Back to school savings are officially in session at Tanger Outlets. Shop tax-free August 2nd through 6th and save up to 70% off the latest school styles. The best of apparel, footwear, accessories, and more. Save at Nike Factory Store, American Eagle, Gap Outlet, Crocs, Under Armour, Banana Republic Factory, and hundreds more. There's always something happening. Discover the latest fun and events all season long. Tanger Outlets, your savings destination.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
250 Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Use the hashtag SBLive. Evan Cohen from Unsportsmanlike at 3 o'clock today. So, why is the perception of Nick Sirianni so low? I feel like of all the things around the Eagles, that is the one thing that generally Eagles fans are worried about. It's Nick Sirianni. And I only ask that question a lot of times. Like, are we putting Nick Sirianni, for instance, okay? Mike McCarthy won a Super Bowl.
Yes.
I don't think the perception of McCarthy is great.
No.
But yet, all he does is win. They won a Super Bowl. The Cowboys win a lot of games. Why is the perception of Mike McCarthy so low for a guy that all he does is win?
I think people would say because he won a championship with a future Hall of Famer and a great defense, and he's more successful in the regular season than the postseason.
Right, but that doesn't mean that he's a bad head coach.
It shouldn't mean.
They've already he has proven that he can win a Super Bowl. And they would say, well, it's with Aaron Rodgers. Most teams that win the Super Bowl have a great quarterback to do that for them.
I've said it a million times, Mike. Name me a head coach who won a championship with a bad team. You can't find it.
McCarthy is 167, 102, and 2. He has won 62% of his games since he has become a head coach back in 2006.
But he's on the hot
Green
seat.
Bay with 13. Well, I mean, listen, I get the hot seat part of it. If you win 12, and end up not being able to get you past that, at some point, you make the decision, okay, you've won 12, and we keep having disappointing losses. It's not like Dallas keeps losing in the Super Bowl or in the NFC Championship game.
Right.
They can't win a playoff game.
Correct.
So I understand that, but are we at the perception that Sirianni is in that McCarthy role where, yeah, he might win 12 games, he might win 10 games, he might win 11 games, he might keep getting to the playoffs, but they're not winning the Super Bowl because of him.
It's insane, but I think that is the perception, yes.
Is that where we have come? Because, again, I go back to this question a lot with Sirianni. The Eagles made the playoffs in 2021. They had no business making the playoffs.
Right.
What role did he have in that? The Eagles went to the Super Bowl in 2022. Nobody penciled them in from going 9-7 to 13-3 Super Bowl.
Correct.
What role did he have in that? They got up to a 10-1 start last year. What role did he have in that? Now, I can hear the other side screaming, well, they went 1-6. They had horrible losses. Okay, what role did he have in that? And what the role he had in the 1-6 finish, is it far greater than the role he had in getting them to the playoffs, getting them to the Super Bowl, and getting them to a 10-1 start? That is, I think, the way you have to look at this.
At the end of the day, are you really willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater? It's the idea that, are you really going to tell me that you're going to punt on a winning coach just because of one bad year?
609-403-0973. Those are the questions to ponder. What role did Sirianni have in getting them to the playoffs his first year? What role did he have in getting them to the Super Bowl in his second year? What role did he have in getting them out to a 10-1 start? And what role did he have in the 1-6 finish? And is that 1-6 finish, the role that he had in that, does that totally usurp all of the other things that he may have done? That's what you need to answer for me. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Coming up, He's the host of Unsportsmanlike with Evan Canny and Michelle Evan Cohen, weekdays 6 to 10, right here on 97.3 ESPN. He joins me next to get in on the conversation. Why is the perception of Nick Sirianni so low? That's next.
Jersey. This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
Finally, NFC East, Cowboys, Giants, Eagles, Commanders.
Nobody.
There should be two, but there's probably nobody.
Nobody.
Eagles? No?
We can put them on the maybe list.
I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFC, and I think that they should be the front runners to win the NFC next year. Their biggest issue last year was coordinators, and they've addressed that with Kellen Moore, who I think is above average offensive coordinator, and Vic Fangio, who is kind of a legend as far as defensive coordinator is concerned.
That was Unsportsmanlike this morning, followed by Dominic Foxworth on Get Up. And right now, we'll defer the discussion with the host of Unsportsmanlike on 97.3 ESPN, Evan Cohen, who joins me now. And it didn't sound like Evan Cohen was giving the Eagles a definitive place in the 7 teams that could win a Super Bowl this year. Now, Aaron Rodgers is 8-12. Who are you to go against Aaron Rodgers and only come up with 7?
Yeah, you never want to go against an Aaron Rodgers theory. But you know what's funny about this side note? Because I know obviously we'll talk about the Eagles, Mike. There's a lot of Aaron Rodgers theories that I don't personally buy into. This one actually makes some sense. I will say, like, this was one where you take a step back and you're like, you know what, you may be onto something. You know, we don't have to talk about the world. We don't have to talk about politics or medicine or anything like that. Just football. You know what, I'm kind of into this one. You played that clip, and I'm glad I was the one that said, yeah, I think maybe on the Eagles, because I'm not writing them off. That's not what I'm doing. This is, to me, and I love Jalen Hurts. Absolutely love him. And I think that, you know, last year, obviously, at the end was very tough. But I was somebody that was rooting for the Patriots, and I was hoping that Jalen Hurts was going to be on their team. Like, I thought Jalen Hurts was going to be a great, great pro. And the Eagles got him. They went to a Super Bowl, and I still believe in him. And they made all these moves this offseason, and there's every reason to believe that they're going to be good. There's only one thing that I just don't know the answer to. Is their coach good?
All right, so you led us down the path of where we were before you came on, okay? So I asked this question, and this is how I'm going to ask it to you, Evan. What role did Nick Sirianni have in getting them to the playoffs his first season, where nobody thought they were a playoff team, right? That was Jalen Hurts' first year. They went 9-7. They make the playoffs. Nobody had him. What role did he have in them getting to the Super Bowl 13-3? What role did he have in them going 10-1? And then what role did he have in them going 1-6 down the stretch? Is the 1-6 usurp all of the other roles that he may have had in those instances? What say you?
It is a great, great question. And there's a reason you've been doing this show for 15 years. And there's a reason that you convinced me about the Embiid thing, even though I think I'm right again. By the way, they shouldn't be playing in the Olympics. So you maybe bring the losing to them. You were talking about them bringing the winning to him. This is a big debate. For those who are not with us when we did this, and I mentioned this on our show, Mike convinced me, because I said Embiid shouldn't be playing in the Olympics, and Mike said, well, wait a minute. You've been the biggest anti-culture, Philadelphia 76er culture guy there is. Don't you think this would help him culturally? And I was like, oh, boy, that's a good point, being around all these winners, et cetera. Now I'm just wondering if he's bringing the losing and the losing mentality to them. But anyway, so it's a very good point you're making. Like, how do we separate his success and his failures?
Yeah, what role do we give him? Like, what role did he have in this success? So I want you to listen to a Jason Kelce bite that we got here. This is from Jason Kelce pointing about what he thinks about Sirianni and why he liked him so much.
Nick moving to like a head coaching position, he removed himself from play calling duties with Shane Steichen, right? that ended up working out pretty damn good. Nick has shown in his tenure with the Eagles that he's going to do whatever he thinks is in the best interest of the Philadelphia Eagles. And he's going to make those decisions, and he doesn't care about how other people perceive it. He doesn't care about anything other than what's in the best interest of the team. And to me, I think players respect the hell out of coaches that operate on that level.
So that's your coworker, Jason Kelsey, now of ESPN, by the way.
Yeah, we're very close.
Yeah. But it's weird just because I think you're right, though. And I hear Canty this morning. I hear you guys talk about this. I feel like the perception of Sirianni is so low. And then I hear a guy like Jason Kelsey. Like, hearing it from Kelsey, does that mean more?
Jason Kelsey, when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, obviously means more than the three of us in the morning because we're not there. He is. Now, that said, is it possible that Jason Kelsey, like any of us would have some sort of bias towards someone he likes and has worked with? I think the answer is yes. So let me use my bias towards somebody I like and work with, and that is Chris Canty, who played 11 years in the NFL for two NFC East teams and the Baltimore Ravens, when he played for the Cowboys and the Giants and the Ravens. And Canty is able to see these things in a way that you and I are not able to see. And he keeps coming back to answer the question, what does Sirianni do well? That's what he constantly asks, as you know. And the end of last year was just weird. I still don't actually know what happened. And I had this revelation today. And I started thinking about, is this the worst coach that Jalen Hurts has played for since he was in high school? He played for Nick Saban, Lincoln Riley, and for Doug Peterson for a minute, correct? For 1 year, if I'm not mistaken? And
a little bit, yeah. He was the bench guy that year.
Right. He was on the team when Doug Peterson was his head coach. And I just wondered, does Jalen Hurts look around and say, but this guy's not as good as these other guys that I played for? And I thought I was supposed to move up. And
yeah.
This guy's maybe not.
It was a very astute point by you, by the way.
Well, because normally, like, you're on in Atlantic City and Philadelphia. When you did college radio at West Virginia, right?
Yep.
The thought would be when you go from college radio at West Virginia to professional radio on 97.3 in the South Jersey, Philadelphia, AC area, you're working with higher level people because you moved up and they moved up.
I had nicer equipment in college, though.
Aren't you a little bit responsible for that, sir? Anyway, so the point that I'm making is use that same logic with Hurts. I'm moving up. I'm working with worse people, though. Not worse people, worse coaches.
Right. Oh, listen, I thought it was pretty, it makes you stop and kind of say, that's interesting. He's thinking, hey, I had better, like the whole thing. And by the way, what did you make of Hurts coming right out yesterday and saying, before you ask me any questions, I want to address the relationship between everybody here. And he's like, hey, I got full trust in Nick and Howie and Mr. Lurie. I mean, we're watching the Hard Knocks. We see them sitting down with the PR guy and being coached on what to say. Is that them saying, you better go out there and make sure that everybody's on the same page here? Or is this Jalen Hurts getting out in front of it himself as the leader of the football team?
That's a good question, because a Saban guy knows how to do that. Saban guy doesn't need coaching because he's been coached by Saban. Think about it. This guy was benched by Saban and came back the next year. Benched in a national championship game and decided to come back for another year before he went to Oklahoma. Like, this is an old school, let my play do my talking kind of football player. So when you're saying he's addressing it beforehand, and we played the sound this morning on Unsportsmanlike here at 97.3, like, yeah, I think it's not impossible to think that is Jalen Hurts. I just keep coming back to this. Like, the Chargers went out there and hired a coach for the quarterback, right? They absolutely went out there and hired Jim Harbaugh for Justin Herbert. How is Bill Belichick not the coach of this team? How do they not hire the guy that Hurts does nothing but play football? He doesn't say anything. He doesn't do anything. He's not going out. He's not best friends or worst friends with the players. He's a football junkie.
Yeah.
He's quiet. Bill Belichick is made for Jalen Hurts.
The concept, we're talking with Evan Cohen on Sportsmanlike on 97.3 ESPN.
Am I wrong about that?
No, I mean, these two guys definitely have, and we have people texting in like, Sirianni's actions on the sideline. Maybe Hurts doesn't respect him because of that. I mean, we all have friends that were different then. Like the one guy's, when you go out to the bar, you're like, he's going to get us in a fight tonight. We had that guy. But, there was a report here locally in the Inquirer, Marcus Hayes wrote it, that Eagles' Jeffrey Lurie views Sirianni as, quote, the next Andy Reid because Sirianni is a, quote, football nerd, a maniacal teacher, and a passionate leader with the capacity to become an excellent administrator, a skill that took Andy Reid more than a decade to master. So inside that organization, that reporting is suggesting that Sirianni looks at this guy, Lurie looks at this guy as something special.
He may be. This is what I just said is not a knock on Sirianni. I just think that Hurts' personality fits a Belichick Saban type thing. Let's talk about then the report about Jeffrey Lurie. So Nick Sirianni, he believes, per this report, that Nick Sirianni is the next Andy Reid, which means in Philadelphia, he will not get you over the hump, but somewhere else he will. Seems like an odd thing to want to sign up for.
Well, we were talking about this right before you came on, and that's a good point by you, Evan Cohen, on Sportsmanlike 6 to 10 weekday mornings on 97.3 ESPN. Mike McCarthy, 12 wins, Super Bowl in Green Bay, yet he's not looked as favorably as this great head coach. Why is that? Is Sirianni falling down that road where I got you to a Super Bowl, but I'm still not the reason we got to the Super Bowl? Because people look at McCarthy and said they won because of Rodgers. Why did the Eagles get to the Super Bowl? Was it because of Hurts, a guy who, I don't know, we're looking at these lists now of the quarterbacks. Hurts isn't in that top level.
No, they got to the Super Bowl because Jalen Hurts was on a rookie contract. Now, I know.
Okay, you heard Dominique Foxworth bite coming into your segment here. He thinks they're the best roster in the league, and that them changing their coordinators, is that enough for you?
No, because I still don't know what Sirianni is going to be for them, and that may be, by the way, too simple. I want to take that back a little bit on the Hurts thing, because it's not just because he was on a rookie contract. Because Wentz was on the team still when they went to the Super Bowl. Or
no. Wentz was traded. Hurts became the starter, and they had all that dead money. I don't remember. Who was the backup, Josh, on that Super Bowl team? He'll find it. But Gardner Minshew was the backup.
Oh, that's pretty good, actually. But the point that I normally say, you either need a Hall of Fame quarterback, or you need a quarterback on a rookie scale contract in order to make the Super Bowl or go to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl, right? Usually that's how it works. Now, dead money, I don't know about that, obviously, from Philadelphia. So maybe I'm a little bit uninformed in that regard. I do think that...
A lot of dead money on that team that went to the Super Bowl because of Wentz.
But you can make up for it because you have a quarterback on a rookie scale contract, right? Mm-hmm. So all of that kind of fits back into this. Is the coordinator stuff enough? I've never been overly impressed with Kellen Moore. I don't think he's some unbelievable offensive coordinator.
And that's a fair opinion, because what I was going to follow up with you is
Fangio, I think, is great.
The Eagles essentially, Evan, I think anyway, went down the formula of what got them to the Super Bowl. We had Steichen, we had Gannon. They're both head coaches now. Strong coordinators. Let them handle their duty. Nick goes back to doing what he does well. The problem we all have as media and onlookers is we can't quantify what he does well because we're not in the locker room. It's like my buddy on John Madden Football used to come out, and he used to joke all the time because he wasn't a video gamer. But he would say, oh, they got speed, they got agility. Where is the meter for heart? They don't have a heart meter. And that was his way of busting our stones that you're sitting here playing a video game like a bunch of idiots. We don't have we can't quantify what Sirianni brings. It's unquantifiable, really.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something we talked about. If I said to the Eagles fans right now, we put up a poll. We said, you can pick your head coach for this upcoming season, but it has to be one of the 4 previous head coaches Jalen Hurts has played for. Who finishes in last place?
Sirianni.
Again, I keep coming back to when you're a rookie or a second-year guy, you don't know any better. now Hurts knows a little bit better, and he may be looking around saying, well, this is what we're doing. If we put up Saban, Lincoln Riley, Doug Peterson, or Nick Sirianni, who would you want as the Eagles head coach this year?
That's the checkmate right there. That's the checkmate question of the day. Get a sponsor for that, someone on the other side of the building. I would say this. You're right about that. Why do we not view a Kyle Shanahan as a guy who can't get it done?
We do.
Are we there now? Because a lot of people think that he's the best play caller. He's this offensive genius. He's the best offensive play caller in the league. Do we view him as a guy that can win the Super Bowl, or do we think he's the guy that the 49ers ultimately have to say, for us to get to where we want to go, we have to part ways?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they have to part ways, and I'm not even saying that. I mean, I'm confused about the Sirianni thing, but I think this is what we do as sports fans. Like, unless somebody's done it, we assume they can until they do.
That's right.
Right? So the Boston Celtics are a great example of this. We retroactively look at everything the Celtics have done as now plus on their resume. Like, we literally say it as, do you realize not only did Tatum and Brown win a championship, but they got to the Eastern Conference Finals 5 or 6 times before that with 3 different coaches? Do you realize how ridiculous this run is? Versus if they didn't win this year, do you realize how many times this team has gotten to the conference finals and has never actually won a championship? The way in which we're saying it is totally, if Kyle Shanahan and the Niners win a Super Bowl this year, the narrative is Kyle Shanahan not only won a title with the Niners this year, he had been to 2 others, and he had a dominant offense with the Falcons that blew a game against the Pats. This guy has a sick resume. If he doesn't win, he can't win a big game. Not only did he not win this year, he lost 2 Super Bowls with leads with the Niners against the Chiefs, and he has 28-3 on his resume. So we look at it, if Sirianni gets fired, what a bust.
Yeah.
If Sirianni goes to the Super Bowl and wins a Super Bowl this year, we say, do you realize how much this guy has done in just 5 years, 4 years, whatever it is, as the Eagles head coach?
I say
he got to 2 Super Bowls?
Right. I say to you, is the only way the perception of him changes is if he wins a Super Bowl. I mean, for a guy to get to...
No, he can get to another. If he gets to another one, we got to shut up on him. Got to shut up on him. Because, like, I've been on the Zach Taylor kick, the Bengals coach. Because I'm like, is there a more high-profile, in theory, person in sports that nobody knows who it is, more so than Zach Taylor? Guy went to a Super Bowl as a head coach.
That's a good question.
Nobody knows who that is. Nobody.
Very good question.
And he had a good season last year with Jake Browning as his quarterback, so now he gets a little bit more of the credit.
Totally off track, but the National League Manager of the Year odds-on favorite is a guy that no one's ever heard of in their life. You couldn't even name him.
What's his name?
He's the manager of the Brewers. What's his name? I don't know.
Oh, Pat Murphy.
Pat Murphy. There you go. He's drinking at a bar in Seattle with Pat Callahan, all right? Who's producing your... I mean, that's... Pat Costello. Excuse me. Pat Callahan is another guy. Pat Costello is down in Seattle having a beer.
By the way, your point is well taken, and I need to give context as to why I answered that question. I went to the University of Wisconsin, so I'm following all of the Wisconsin sports social media still. So that's otherwise no chance I would have gotten that one right.
Pat Costello is your producer. Pat Callahan was a guy who used to produce for me at one point. But Pat Costello is your producer.
Wait, hold on. What does the South Jersey, Philly area have? So if you're a Pat C, you become a radio producer? Because Pat Costello is from Philly. So we need the Pat C. Any Pat C that's out there can apply for a job with Mike. Forget Josh. He's out. Pat C is in.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Pat Costello emailed me last night saying he was in Sea Isle, and I said, well, I was on vacation last week. And he said, yeah, I know. The guy hosting's name was Josh, who was my producer, who was filling in for me while I was gone. So he picked up on that. But, yes, Pat C gets you a job on the radio in South Jersey. All right, so you guys talked about it this morning. Unsportsmanlike had a list of 7 teams that you think are legitimate Super Bowl contenders: Kansas City, Baltimore, Cincinnati, San Francisco, Rams, Lions, Packers. They are your 7 teams that you think can win a Super Bowl. You have no Dallas, no Philly, No Buffalo, no Jets, no Browns. These are your 7. Are you feeling good with them? Or do you want to add, now that you're on another opportunity, another platform?
I have no problem if you want to add Philadelphia. I have zero issue. If you want to take our 7 and make it 8 and you want to put Philly on there, I have no issue with you doing that at all. They were on my maybe list. Buffalo was on my maybe list. The Jets, I don't see it. The Jets are the one team you mentioned I don't see. And the Cowboys, I don't get for the life of me as to what they are doing. So you have, let's go through yours here. So you have 9. You have Kansas City, the Jets, Baltimore, Cincinnati, San Francisco, the Lions, the Packers, the Eagles, and Houston. So Houston, I think, has a sophomore slump season. That's my gut feeling on them.
Big call there.
You added the Jets and you added the Eagles. So, again, I have an issue with Houston, have an issue with the Jets.
Listen, the Jets roster is good enough as long as Rodgers is some microcosm of himself, some semblance of the player he was. That roster's pretty darn good.
Okay, but they're the Jets. And normally I could sit here and say, well, laundry shouldn't matter. But they're the Jets.
Right.
So my assumption is something will go wrong. I just don't trust that everything is going to go right.
That's a fair, but it could go wrong in the AFC Championship game where...
Mike, what am I supposed to do right now? Because I'm looking here. My wife is away, and I'm having this big unsportsmanlike party at my house tomorrow night, and we had to rent furniture, tables and chairs. So there's a guy at my front door right now. I'm going to actually talk to the guy at my front door and see if I can... Hi, can I meet you right by the garage in a minute? I don't see the guy. So now I'm going to have to open my garage.
Is this from the Ring camera?
Yeah, it was on the security camera. And now I'm going to have to, let's see, I'm going to have to open the garage, I think, by way of my phone to make sure this guy doesn't leave.
So he's got all the furniture.
He's there. Hold on. I'll be right up in a second. Can I meet you by the garage? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, can you get credit for a second guess there?
All right, that was pretty damn good.
Oh, I hate to do this to you.
I want you to ask that guy if he thinks the Eagles are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. That's what we need.
Let's see. Okay, do me a favor. Text me the call-in line, and I'll ask the guy at the garage, if he thinks the Eagles are Super Bowl. I'll call you in a minute.
Oh, man. All right. Evan Cohen, everybody. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. here on 97.3 ESPN. He's got to go get the furniture. I'll let him roll. Appreciate him, as always, here on the Sports Bash. Don't forget, I would imagine that story is going to come up tomorrow morning at some point. I was going to tell Evan, so apparently they were talking about being on Unsportsmanlike the other day, so which I wanted to tell him he needs to... If he's going to bring me up on the morning show, can it be after like 7 o'clock? Because I have people that were texting me at that time in the morning that he was talking, and then it was waking me up. The text messages coming in, waking me up in the morning. So I'll have to see if he does that tomorrow. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks to Evan Cohen. Don't forget, weekday mornings at 7 here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, we got a lot to do. We got so much more to get into, including in the 5 o'clock hour, we're going to talk with Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad, Red October, Philly. But when we come back, coming up, would you make either of these two Phillies trades? Would you make either of these two Phillies trades? That's coming up next here on the Sports Bash. Thanks to Evan Cohen, by the way. All right, I want to remind you guys, the big 15-year anniversary Happy Hour Friday. Now, it's Happy Hour Friday every Friday, but this summer, we're taking it on the road. Happy Hour Friday has become a place that we can all kind of hang out and come up with different beer selections, and people come up to me all the time, hey, thanks for recommending this one or that one, and we're going to take it on the road to Giuliano's Pub and Grill, EHT. Stop out, have a beer with the show, and enter to win tickets to see the Smashing Pumpkins and Green Day at Citizens Bank Park. We're going to be giving those away every hour. Plus, 10 listeners who show up tomorrow and hang out for Happy Hour Friday. You are going to be entered for this year's 99 Bottles Party. Simple as that. Stop out tomorrow, Giuliano's, hang out with the show, have a beer. Hey, Mike, been listening for 5 years. Listened to you in first year, 2009. June 1st, 2009 is when we came on the air as the Sports Bash. Stop out tomorrow. 10 listeners will get an automatic entry into this year's 99 Bottles Party. That means you don't have to call. You don't have to enter. You're in for this year's 99 Bottles. And by the way, that doesn't mean we're going to have 150 people in 99 Bottles. That means 50 slots will be filled, or 10 slots tomorrow will be filled. That means we'll only have 89 left. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and streaming live video on the X platform, at Mike Gill Show. Coming up, would you make either of these two Phillies trades? That's next.
You're listening.
Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
With Mike Gill.
Never thought this radio stunt would catch on so big.
On 97.3 ESPN.
332 Sports Bash. Thanks to Evan Cohen from Unsportsmanlike. A lot of people asking or answering the question, what role has Sirianni had in the success of the Eagles team over his 3 seasons here? If you were to ask yourself, what does Sirianni do in the year they went to the playoffs in 2021? What did he do to get them to the Super Bowl in 2022? What did he do to get them out to a 10-1 start last year? It can't be all negative, right? There's got to be things that he has done to help in those 3 capacities. Getting to the playoffs, getting to the Super Bowl, getting to a 10-1 start. And by the way, getting to the playoffs again last year. Getting to the playoffs 3 years in a row. There's a lot of franchises out there that would like to get to the playoffs 3 straight years. I know you expect more, and just getting to the playoffs sometimes anymore is just not good enough. But there has been success. And that doesn't mean your opinion of Nick Sirianni has to be he's great or that he's good. He could not be great in your mind. I'm not trying to convince you others. I'm just trying to talk aloud to myself and say, what role has he had and why the Eagles have been very successful? All right. So would you make these Eagles trades? Phillies trades, sorry. Okay, I saw these trades posted at a couple different sites as we're getting close to the trade deadline now, okay? You ready for these?
Yeah, baseball's getting in the way of our football conversation.
Trade proposal number 1. Phillies trade Justin Crawford, Mick Abel to the White Sox for Luis Robert Jr.
Out. Completely out. I don't like the fact that Luis Robert Jr. has had only one healthy season in the major leagues. The guy has not consistently been healthy. I am not giving up some of my best assets to get a guy that I have no track record of being healthy.
So I don't love having to include Crawford, and Miller I don't want to have to include either. I don't mind trading Mick Abel in that deal. Like, I'll trade Mick Abel almost in any deal at this point. Like, am I so down on Abel? That's not what I'm saying. I know I have to give to get.
Right.
He would be the guy I'm willing to give.
Sure.
Are the White Sox willing to do a straight Robert for Abel? Abel, by the way, is having a terrible year. So who knows what his value is on the open market. You might say, well, Mick Abel's this great prospect. He was a number 1 pick. He's been like your number 2 prospect in your system for a while. He's no longer your number 2 prospect in your system. He has fallen out of the top 3. I think he's like 4 right now, maybe.
Yeah, he's dropping down the list. It seems like every month almost.
Yeah, he was. Baseball America last year had him 40 before the season. Now he was 64. So he is slipping, okay? This year at Lehigh Valley for the Iron Pigs, he is 3-7 with a 6.53 ERA.
Oof.
A 1.7 whip. I mean, he has completely lost it. I can't imagine that he has enough value that someone would just flat out say, yes, he's the guy that can get the trade done.
No, there's nobody willing to do that. For straight up.
So I guess you have to ask the question, are you willing to trade Lewis Robert for are you willing to trade Justin Crawford to get Lewis Robert?
And again, I say no. Because, again, you're trading for a player that has 1 year of healthy production for a guy who, frankly, if you just wait, could be your starting outfielder in a couple years. Because in a couple years, Nick Castellanos' contract will be done.
Yeah, I push back on that, though, because what's your window? It's right now. You can't say, hey, in a couple years we're going to. No. This team has to win right now with Bryce Harper in his prime, Trey Turner in his prime, Zach Wheeler. These guys are in their prime years. They're signed longer term, but this might be the best year you get out of these guys.
Well, if that's how you feel, then find me someone else to trade Crawford for. That's how I look at it. Because to me, Luis Robert, I have a lot of concerns about that guy's durability.
Yeah, his health is definitely the reason why you would be somewhat concerned. Also, I say his health is one of the reasons. He is not having a great year that makes you feel like, man, we're getting this guy who's having a great year. He's hitting 227 with a 299 on base percentage. He has not been very good this year. So that's one. The other trade's a whopper. You ready for this one?
Give it to me.
This is from Bleacher Report. Trade proposal. Phillies trade Justin Crawford, Andrew Painter, and Aiden Miller. That is your number 1, your number 2, and your number 3. It is also the number 31, 34, and 42 overall in all of baseball. And in return, you get Tarek Skubal. That's the proposal, Bleacher Report. Crawford, Painter, Miller for Skubal. He is far and away the top choice for American League Cy Young. You would be adding potentially the leading candidate in the American League Cy Young Award race to Zach Wheeler, who's number 2 in the National League, and he's not all that far off from overtaking Chris Sale.
So my question is giving up those 3 the only way I can get him? And the only reason I ask that is because that feels like a massive give up for anyone. Doesn't matter who it is. You know, I understand the Phillies gave up a lot back in the day to get Cliff Lee. I understand they gave up a good amount to get Roy Halladay back in the day. But let me ask you, Mike.
Well, I'll answer a couple things here. Over at Mike Gill Show on Twitter. At TBucks609, TBBucks609 tweets, I think that is too much for one pitcher. That's the same that San Diego gave up for Juan Soto, and he's considered a generational talent. They are good with pitching, in my honest opinion, and they should try to trade for Mike Trout, if anything. I know it's a long shot, but worth a try. So I would ask, would you give up those 3 players to get Mike Trout?
Not now, because he can't stay healthy either. Remember, he was supposed to be back on the field for his rehab assignment on Tuesday.
He was on the field, and then they had to take him off.
They had to take him out because he had knee soreness. And now there's conjecture that Trout and the Angels might have brought him back a little too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't even trade those guys for him. For as much as I love Mike Trout, as much as I've even advocated myself for the Phillies to go out and acquire Mike Trout, if I am going to take the position on Luis Robert Jr., I have to be consistent and have the same position on Mike Trout.
So those 3 players, is there a player in the game that is available or whose name has come up that you would move Painter, Miller, and Crawford to get?
Not one that I've seen that's come up, because I think most of the best players in the game right now are all locked in, or they're Scott Boras clients waiting to be free agents, like Juan Soto, for example.
Yeah, that's a lot to give up.
Now,
the only way the interesting part about this, and by the way, I got another text that just came in, a tweet that just came in at Mike Gill Show on Twitter X. Dennis Clark _ ESQ, Esquire. He says, the Phillies, Skubal would be nice, but the trade, the question I asked was who would say no to this deal? He says the Phillies. Skubal would be nice, but that trade would be a terrible use of those assets. If you're giving up the top 3 prospects in trades, you better be addressing more than one issue. The bullpen and the outfield bat are more important than starting pitching right now. So I see the pushback from Dennis and the previous tweet and some others and text messages. I will say this. I don't want to give up Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford, or Andrew Painter. I like all 3 of these guys a lot. I also go back to what I said the other day. The Phillies made a plethora of trades over the years in their 08, 9, 10, 11 run that included prospects.
Correct.
I can't think of one of them that worked out.
There's only one, really. Carlos Carrasco.
And he was
a solid, good pitcher.
Carlos Carrasco. If you ended up giving up Carlos Carrasco, and he was the only player that made it, don't you almost have to say, you know what, I'm willing to take my chance that none of these guys work out?
Well, for example, if you were to tell me, Mike, that if you're the Tigers, just say that you talk to the Tigers about Skubal, and you say, look, if you're the Tigers, say, look, the only way we're trading this guy is if you give us Painter. I'm willing to at least capitulate on that point because you're trading young pitcher for a young pitcher. It's the other assets that I would like to have more of a conversation about, because if Aiden Miller is as good as people like Jim Bowden say he is, are you really willing to give that guy up? Is Justin Crawford is as good as you say he's going to be? Are you really going to give up 2 of
Here's the problem, though. Everybody can say this guy's as good and that guy's as good, and he's the... We heard that about Jason Donald and Lou Marson and Carlos Carrasco and
Kyle
every
Drabek.
other... Kyle Drabek got hurt. It wasn't that he failed. It was his arm failed him. I loved Drabek. He was one guy that I had no interest in giving up on. I thought he was going to be outstanding. And unfortunately, his arm, did not hold up for him.
Well, you could say Painter might be in the same deal.
He just already had Tommy John surgery.
Right.
Like, the Phillies have been down this road where they've been the good team, and now they have to be the team that decides between winning now and the future.
Sure.
And that's a tough dynamic. But Dave Dombrowski, to me, is a guy who is a win-now guy.
I agree.
He makes the moves. He pulls no punches here. This guy, I want the guy who texts in all of the different 9-for-1 trades to come out to Happy Hour Friday and have a beer with us on Friday. I love this guy to death. He just comes up with... He's the guy that comes up with all the trade scenarios.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And in this trade, he says the Phillies could send back Taijuan Walker to offset salary. As if anybody wants Taijuan Walker.
As if there's a salary cap in baseball.
Yeah, it's not like it's not basketball where we need to match salaries here. Nobody wants Taijuan. Taijuan Walker's salary is an anchor. I mean, that thing is on the books for 2 more years. Why would the White Sox or the Tigers
or any team
want Taijuan Walker's back in return? Sorry, I just had to bring that up. Look, this is in fantasy sports. Adding more players to a trade doesn't help get the trade done.
Right.
They've got to be good players. Nobody wants your blah, blah, and blah, and blah prospect. In a trade of this magnitude, they want the best guys you have. Right? They want the best guys that you have. You said they can get the players they need without trading Aiden Miller, Painter, Crawford, or Kaba. Okay, fine. They can get better, but they're not getting Skubal is the point.
Well, and that's the other side of the conversation. Do you need Skubal?
Well, and the conversation of do you need Skubal is an interesting one because the article that was written by the guy at Bleacher Report basically suggests this would be Dombrowski's way of saying we are all in. We are making sure that we have the best ammunition we can find for this battle.
Okay, so how does that explain 2018 then? The crowning move of Dombrowski in 2018 with the Boston Red Sox was Steven Pearce. Not the biggest name on the market, but he was the World Series MVP. He was a crucial player for that team down the stretch of that season. So Dombrowski's also shown you to make the savvy move, not always the biggest move.
Yeah, I mean, last year he made the move. He got Michael Lorenzen. He was an all-star pitcher, and many people thought that was the savvy move. Didn't work out. He got Rodolfo Castro. Wasn't good enough. Like that move kind of backfired on him. So the big moves that he has been known for is I'm going to get the best player and I'll give up what I have to get it.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. If you're out there listening and you say, hey, look, you got the Cy Young leader in the clubhouse. We did the betting odds today. Let me pull them up real quick for Skubal.
Skubal's the leader, right?
He's the leader far and away.
Which is so bizarre to me.
Yeah, Skubal in the American League Cy Young Award odds at DraftKings right now. Okay, I'll use DraftKings because it's the first one that was right here. Okay. The Cy Young odds for the American League Award are, why can't I get to the American League? There we go. American League. Skubal is actually minus 140 now. It dropped from earlier today. Wasn't he like minus 260?
It was like minus 200, I thought.
And Corbin Burns is plus 260. So Skubal is the favorite in the American League. He's the only one that has minus odds. Seth Lugo is next at plus 1,000. Logan Gilbert is plus 1,100. Garrett Crochet is plus 2,200. I mean, do you then say, and Jack Flaherty, by the way, is plus 3,000. There's been some reports that the Phillies have their eyes on both Crochet and Flaherty. Do you just go to the lesser guy and give up less? But then you pay for what you get.
Right, you pay for what you get. You get a lesser, you acquire the lesser guy, and then you get a lesser return on your investment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as simple as 1, 2, 3.
We'll talk to Bob Wankel about this tonight here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I sent him these trades. I said, break them down, evaluate them, and I'm going to have you on tonight, and we're going to get your opinion on whether or not
give him a homework assignment.
Yeah, well, I told him. I said, I got a couple trades. He said, send them over to me. I want to take a look at them, and I'll give you my thoughts on them. So that's coming up tonight at 5 o'clock here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Coming up, football at 4. Andrew DeCecco's in the house. And don't forget, Eagles football is back Friday night, August 9th, 7:30 M&T Bank Stadium for Eagles and Ravens, the preseason opener. Plus, we've got the Hall of Fame game right here on 97.3 ESPN. So if you're driving around and you want to hear the popping of the pads, we got you covered here on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up at 4 o'clock, Andrew DeCecco has football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.
It's
Back to school savings are officially in session at Tanger Outlets. Shop tax-free August 2nd through 6th and save up to 70% off the latest school styles. The best of apparel, footwear, accessories, and more. Save at Nike Factory Store, American Eagle, Gap Outlet, Crocs, Under Armour, Banana Republic Factory, and hundreds more. There's always something happening. Discover the latest fun and events all season long. Tanger Outlets, your savings destination.
Mike Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Use the hashtag SB Live. What's up, everybody? Don't forget, tomorrow we're live at Giuliano's. We're going to be over there from 2 to 6, celebrating 15 years of the Sports Bash. 2264 Ocean Heights Avenue, EHT, 15th anniversary happy hour Friday party all summer long. We're going to start with Giuliano's tomorrow. Stop out, have a beer the whole day. You can enter to win Smashing Pumpkins and Green Day tickets. That show is at Citizens Bank Park on August 9th. We're going to be randomly selecting winners every hour on the show. Me personally, I was going to go to the Smashing Pumpkins Green Day show, but we are rerouting ourselves to the World Series in Glen Allen, Virginia. We're going to be heading down there in a couple of weeks. And, man, it's been a whirlwind of a couple of hours, the last 48 hours or so. We are heading down to the World Series. So we're doing this happy hour Friday with the Smashing Pumpkins tickets, Green Day tickets, which I was going to that show. I was all pumped up, and now I'm not. But we have a good reason why I'm not going. Plus, 10 lucky listeners tomorrow stop out to Giuliano's. You're going to get entered into this year's 99 Bottles party, which will be happening usually the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is when we have that 99 Bottles party. 10 entries tomorrow given away at Giuliano's. Yeah, baby. So stop out tomorrow, have a beer with the show, enter to win tickets to see the Smashing Pumpkins and Green Day at Citizens Bank Park. It's $3.50 Bud Light drafts, the whole show, $4 neutral vodka seltzers, the whole show. We're going to be outside on the patio at Giuliano's, 2264 Ocean Heights Avenue, EHT, celebrating 15 years of the Sports Bash. Happy hour Friday tomorrow. Football at 4 is up next.
City 97.3 ESPN presents the Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Andrew DeCecco, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
We're never satisfied. That hunger for more. I have it. Everyone has it.
Now live, this is Football at 4.
Football at 4 powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. The Eagles are back. Football is back. We'll dive in to a little bit of Eagles. Andrew's been at training camp. Our division previews continue. We're getting out of the wire here. We're looking at the NFC South today, which is a wide-open, fun division. Falcons, Panthers, Saints, and Buccaneers. We know the Eagles played the Bucs in the playoffs last year. They got knocked out there. Who's the favorite there? A lot of new faces in that division. We'll take a look at it with Andrew DeCecco here from InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast as he joins us for Football at 4 on this Thursday edition. Andrew, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Mike, doing well. How are you?
All is good, brother. We're getting ready for, obviously, the Hall of Fame game next week. The Eagles on the 9th and the start of training camp. You've been at camp the last couple of days, so let's start there and just get a couple of overview thoughts on some of the news and notes that have kind of stood out as you've been at the NovaCare complex.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts looks really sharp. He's on time. He's keeping the offense on schedule. It looks like he's really taken the playbook from the spring and digested it, and he's operating at a higher level, and he's much more decisive in where he needs to go with the football, and he's keeping the ball out of harm's way. I think that's a testament to how quickly he's able to process things, and when you look at it in terms of him having so many different coordinators over the years, I think him being so adaptable is really going to serve him well in this offense. And then for me, it's on the defensive side, it's the constant shuffling of the personnel to really gauge where you're at in terms of how certain players may fit in, because it's Keely Ringo starting today. Yesterday was Isaiah Rodgers starting at corner opposite Darius Slay. Then you're seeing a linebacker carousel of sorts with obviously Devin White being the headliner there at the linebacker spot, but you also have Zach Bond and you have Nakobe Dean that are rotating back and forth with the first team. And Van Sumeren's also getting some looks with the second. Well, he's played with the second team primarily. So you're seeing a lot of mixing and matching, and I think Vic really wants to better gauge his personnel and find out what their strengths are so he can optimize what they're able to do.
That secondary that everybody's wondering what's happening there, has there been any standouts or anything that you can read the tea leaves on in that battle?
I mean, it's too early really to make that determination. I think all players have flashed at certain points in terms of just the starters, the first team players. Quinyon Mitchell has seen second-team reps. He's been working inside. He's played outside. So I thought that was an interesting wrinkle that I was not expecting because I didn't really grade him as an inside corner coming out, but he's actually looks pretty natural in doing so. So I think him being able to prove that versatility really sort of accelerates him being able to contribute defensively, especially in light of Cooper DeJean being missing 3 weeks with a hamstring injury. I think that's particularly interesting. I thought Keely Ringo had some nice plays as well, and the vocal prowess of C.J. Gardner-Johnson and directing traffic back there, communicating, getting guys lined up, I think is really going to be a paramount and essential element to the defense. And you look at last season, they didn't have a lot of communication, so I think he's going to help a ton in that regard.
Yeah, we all looking forward to that. Day 2 at Eagles camp. Andrew DeCecco is covering it for Inside the Birds, and, of course, we'll have it here on Football at 4. We've been doing our division previews as we do every year with Andrew. Give you a little look at some of the teams all around football. Last year, the Tampa Bay Bucks finished 9-8 in the AFC North, but they won a wild card game against the Philadelphia Eagles. And you take a look at this Tampa Bay team as a division winner a year ago, Andrew. They brought back Baker Mayfield. They gave him that 3-year deal. Mike Evans is still there. Chris Godwin is still there. This is a team that looks a lot like the team on offense that left the field last year against Philadelphia.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the Baker Mayfield there at quarterback, Rashad White at running back. At center, you drafted Graham Barton so that in the first round, so that's an interesting element to add to the offensive line, which should help that unit churn along. Then they also have Mike Evans, Trey Palmer, and Chris Godwin at wide receiver, so I really like their contingent that they have there. Mike Evans is perennially one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. He gets 1,000 yards every year, and that's sort of taken for granted, but I think that the Buccaneers have a good enough offense even with Baker Mayfield back there that they should be able to make some headway in their division.
This is a team that a couple years ago won a Super Bowl, had that awesome defense. Devin White was a part of that defense. David, Cansey, Vea, Logan Hall, Winfield. I mean, this is a pretty good defense here.
Yeah, Vita Vea, Kalijah Cansey, the undersized defensive lineman from Pittsburgh. Those are two cornerstone players that they have on their defensive line. Levante David's still there. And then on the defensive backfield, Antoine Winfield is one of the best safeties in the NFL. And they also have Zion McCollum, who has he's been in and out of the starting lineup, been a prominent rotational player, been a starter. The Eagles, of course, have Zion's twin brother, Tristan McCollum, who is a safety here in Philadelphia. So I think that's kind of a cool storyline.
All right, Andrew, the other team in that division, the Atlanta Falcons. Some people think this is the favorite. They went out and got Kirk Cousins to lead an offense that has a lot of high draft choices devoted. They went out and got Bijan Robinson. Drake London was a pick. Kyle Pitts was a big pick. So is this offense with Kirk Cousins ready to overtake Tampa Bay in the NFC South?
It certainly should be, because Kirk Cousins, obviously, he's being well compensated, but I think he's a quarterback that is sort of dismissed, and his accomplishments in the regular season are minimized, but he should be able to elevate that offense significantly. Now, whether they make any headway in the postseason, that remains to be seen. But when you look at an offense that has Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore, who's a pretty interesting movable piece that they have, he needs to stay healthy. Kyle Pitts is a sort of an enigma at tight end that should be someone who should factor more prominently in the red zone than he really has and be more of a vertical option in that offense. And then running back Bijan Robinson, I think that you have a full, gamut of weapons at your disposal. And I think Kirk Cousins has proven that he's someone who can, optimize the players that he has at the skill position and find ways to generate offense. And I think that's what they're going to do.
All right, Andrew, you take a look at that offense, definitely with Cousins, gives them a little bit more stability at that position. Defensively, though, where is this Falcons team? Is this a good enough defense to hold up their end of the bargain?
I don't think that they have enough players defensively to really make themselves a viable contender in that division. Unless their offense is this otherworldly unit that can outscore teams, they're going to have a hard time, at least in my estimation. The three players that I think offer the most intrigue are safety Jesse Bates, cornerback A.J. Terrell, and then they drafted linebacker Braylon Trice in the third round. I think he has traits that lend itself to being able to be an early contributor, but again, that's a projection. You don't know, but they don't have a lot to offer defensively that really moves the needle, in my opinion.
All right, let's go to New Orleans. Derek Carr is the quarterback there, and of course, Kamara, Chris Olave. They've got some interesting weapons there. This looks like an offense, though, that they brought Carr in thinking that was going to upgrade. He's been kind of inconsistent there. So where do you see this Saints offense?
Well, I'm pretty high on. Well, I'm not so much as on Chris Olave, but Rashid Shaheed, who was recently compensated. I think he's a really good story out of Weber State. Good speed option, someone who I think has become more of a 3-level threat, explosive player, So he gives you that vertical element. Chris Olave gives you more of that possession receiver, or someone who's going to command a ton of targets, but maybe not take the top off of a defense. They drafted Talise Fuaga in the first round out of Oregon State. He's going to be their left tackle, and that's going to complement what they have in the backfield with quarterback Derek Carr and running back Alvin Kamara. So I like what they have. And Juwan Johnson, I believe, is on the PUP list, their tight end. So if it wasn't for that, I would feel a lot more confident, because I think Juwan Johnson's a good red zone option and kind of gives them an edge in that area. But nevertheless, it's still a pretty good unit, at least the way it looks on paper.
Yeah, the Carr signing there hasn't really worked out, I guess, the way they thought it would. We'll see if Kamara has anything left in the tank. They have one of my favorite players, name-wise, Equimonious St. Brown is one of the receivers on that team. Defensively here, Cam Jordan and crew, you take a look at that. You know, this is the whole roster. You got some interesting names here, but it just feels kind of like a middle-of-the-pack type of team.
Yeah, you're right. And when you look at their defensive line, Carl Granderson I did not like him coming out of Wyoming. But it's interesting when a sidebar, when you look at that Wyoming defense, that's where he played, and he was on that line, and they had Tyler Hall, who's now with the Eagles. He was a corner. They had Marcus Epps. They had Andrew Wingard, and they had Logan Wilson at linebacker. So it's kind of interesting that all those players play for that defense. But I don't really think that he brings much in terms of being a every down starter to that defense. Colin Saunders was a player who flashed throughout the draft process, very athletic, but he's bounced around a little bit. Never really made his mark. Cam Jordan really is their centerpiece still at his advanced age, so he's going to have to be someone who they lean on heavily. I just don't know that he has I don't know if that's fair at this stage of his career. But linebackers, that's where they sort of move the needle, in my opinion. They have Demario Davis, Willie Gay, who they added, and Marshawn Lattimore is perennially one of the best corners in the NFL. So I think their second and third levels are a lot more appealing than the defensive line.
Andrew DeCecco, Football at 4, Inside the Birds and Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, training camp is here. We're taking a look at the NFC North in our division previews. You go to Carolina, had the number 1 pick last year, would have had the number 1 pick again this year. They took Bryce Young. Where is that offense in year number 2 with Bryce Young? Even looking around, you're saying, it's not a whole heck of a lot of attractive options here.
No, I mean, no spoiler here. They're going to probably finish last in this division. I just don't think they have enough offensively to really support a second-year quarterback in Bryce Young. Yes, you've added Jonathan Brooks, the running back in the second round from Texas, but he's on the NFI list, so you don't know when he's going to be able to help you. Miles Sanders is still there, Chuba Hubbard, but Miles and Chuba, they're not really game-changing type of players. 3-down running backs that can really help you. They're more situationally based players. They drafted Xavier Leggett, the wide receiver, in the first round. You never know with wide receivers, especially young ones, if they're able to step in right away or if there's going to be a steep learning curve. Deontay Johnson's a nice player who they added, of course, the former Pittsburgh Steeler. He's a really good route runner. I think he's really good at operating over the short to intermediate levels, and he does have some speed to him, but I don't know if the surrounding talent's enough to really accentuate what he can do and how he can help your offense. And then Adam Thielen is more of a chain mover. He's obviously on the older side, doesn't have a lot of speed or explosiveness. He's more of the sure-handed, move the chains type of player. And they also drafted a tight end named Jatavian Sanders, who I really like coming out of Texas. He's somebody that I think that young tight ends or tight ends in general are a quarterback's best friend. I just don't know how quickly Jatavian Sanders is going to be able to help because he's not really a well-rounded tight end. I think he needs a lot of work as a blocker, so I don't know how quickly he's even going to see the field.
All right, let's close out with their defense here, which, the Carolina's had some good defensive players over the year. You take a look at, they got Clowney, who's up in age, obviously. Shaq Thompson's over there. What else stands out? J.C. Horn, by the way, was a player I liked at South Carolina a lot. What else stands out about the Carolina defense?
Josie Jewell, who they added, and I know a lot of, there were some questions as to whether he would be a good fit for the Eagles. But he's there. J.C. Horn's a player who I really liked also coming out of the draft. Jordan Fuller's a safety who I thought would have been a good fit in Philadelphia, the former Rams safety. Nevertheless, he ends up in Carolina. So that kind of rounds out that unit. And I just, Jadeveon Clowney's there. He's a journeyman who's oft injured, and I don't know if I think he's more of a situational type of player at this stage of his career. But the Panthers in general don't have enough talent to really contend with some of the other teams in their division.
All right, there you go. It's the North. Not a lot of expectations. Tampa Bay, though, is kind of interesting. Atlanta, I think, is kind of interesting. How do you see this division ending up?
Atlanta, Tampa Bay, New Orleans Saints, and the Carolina Panthers.
Carolina all the way down the bottom. We'll see what ends up happening with the quarterback there, Bryce Young. You draft a guy number 1 overall. You're expecting a lot better than that, and it could be 2 straight last-place finishes for the Carolina Panthers. All right, we are getting down to the end of our division previews. We'll continue them next week with Andrew here, but make sure you follow all of his coverage of the Eagles and training camp over at InsideTheBirds.com. All right, buddy. We'll talk to you next week, pal.
Mike, have a great weekend.
You do the same. Andrew DeCecco, always kind enough to join us for Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. Brought to you today by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating and plumbing service and installation for generations. Call them at 609-390-3907 or online at broadlees.net. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Let's skip it here for a second and couple things. Dominic Foxworth today said the Eagles can be the best team in the NFC because they fixed their biggest problem from last year. What was their biggest problem from last year?
I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFC, and I think that they should be the front runners to win the NFC next year. Their biggest issue last year was coordinators, and they've addressed that with Kellen Moore, who I think is above average offensive coordinator, and Vic Fangio, who is kind of a legend as far as defensive coordinator is concerned.
Did the Eagles fix their biggest problem from last year so much so that they have the best talent in the NFC? Dominic Foxworth, what say you?
They went on and addressed the cornerback situation with Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell in the draft, and that D-line is as talented as ever. And one of the things that we never talk about much, except for when my guy Jeff Saturday is there, is the most important thing on the offense is that line. And that line is still great. It's an incredible offensive line with a backup of Mekhi Becton. So I think they have all the tools they need as long as they can coordinate the offense and defense to the above average level. They have a talent to be the best team in the NFC.
Is it that simple? That they have the best talent as long as their coordinators have coordinated? Is it that simple for Philadelphia?
It is that simple because that was literally the biggest problem, as he said last year. No one denied the Eagles' talent last year. That was the whole reason why we were all befuddled last year. The reason why fans were frustrated and annoyed and angry and losing their minds was because everyone said, we have the talent. What is wrong here? And the Eagles said, well, we are basically admitting that the coaching was not good enough. So we're going to go out there and we're going to clean house. Almost more than 90% of the coaching staff was cleared out, Mike.
Are we more concerned about Nick Sirianni or are we more optimistic about the new coordinators?
I think people should be more optimistic about the coordinators. I think that this Sirianni stuff, Evan Cohen mentioned this in the last hour with you, Mike. Yes, if you literally compare Nick Sirianni to other coaches, you're going to give the nod to other head coaches. But I think it's unfair. It's unfair to sit here and say, well, Jalen Hurts played for Nick Saban. Nick Saban's the greatest college football coach of all time. Why are we comparing Nick Sirianni to that guy? That's unfair. Why don't we judge Sirianni?
He's also, by the way, a key comment there, one of the greatest college coaches of all time.
Right.
Nick Saban in the pros.
Not so much.
Not so much.
Yeah. But my larger point is, Mike, shouldn't we compare Sirianni to what he has done and not to what other coaches have done?
Of course, but that's the game. Sports is a comparison. When a guy comes out in the draft, what do we want to do? Who's a comp?
Right. What's the comp?
What's the comparable player to him? But I think Dominic Foxworth, his point that the Eagles can be the best team because they fixed their biggest problem. When you have a problem, you identify it, and then you have to fix it. I think the Eagles spoke volumes this offseason. They thought their biggest problem was Brian Johnson and Sean Desai, and by proxy, Matt Patricia. Those three coordinators are no longer here. And they went out and said, we're going to go get a guy who has had a ton of success in this league, in Vic Fangio, and we're going to go get another guy who has been highly regarded in this league, in Kellen Moore. Does that mean that they're back to being the favorite? It sounds like Dominic Foxworth thinks so, but if you take a look at what this team, needed to add and help Jalen Hurts, maybe it was something they didn't have or that they did have last year but didn't use it enough or believe in it enough, and that's at the running back position. And Damian Woody thinks that Saquon Barkley will help Hurts and the Eagles' offense be better.
He's the most talented back that the Philadelphia Eagles have had in a very long time. He's a 3-down back, and I think not only will he provide an element of explosiveness in the running game, but I think particularly on third down, that's where he's going to help Jalen Hurts out the most. We've talked ad nauseum about Jalen Hurts and the blitz and all those type of things. Well, guess what? When you have Saquon Barkley in the backfield, he's going to be another outlet receiver for Jalen Hurts in those situations.
All right, that all sounds great, but the Eagles have not used the outlet receiver because they've had guys who can catch the ball out of the backfield. They've had DeAndre Swift, who came here more as a pass catcher than a running back. They didn't use him. So are we supposed to believe now that all of a sudden they're going to throw the ball to the back out of the backfield?
Yes, because of the coordinator.
Well, I was going to say, or is the change in coordinator enough to change the focus of that third down where, hey, it's 3rd and 4, instead of trying to force it to this guy or that guy, now we're going to do something we haven't done the last 3 years, and that's dump it off.
If Sirianni has truly handed the reins to Kellen Moore, as he says he has, as has been reported, then that means you will see the ball thrown to the running back, unlike in years past.
Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live video on the X platform, and that's at Mike Gill Show. You can check us out over there. Use the hashtag SBLive. We got a lot more to do, including Knicks Nuggets today. They're coming up on the other side here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. We've got Knicks Nuggets, Bob Wankel, and the Big Three still to come. And we told you we're going to be at Giuliano's tomorrow for Happy Hour Friday. We're going to be doing this most of the rest of the summer. There'll be a couple weeks where I'm going to be at the World Series with the baseball team, so I'll be out for a couple of Fridays in a row. But this Friday, next Friday, we just found out where we're going to be on August 23rd as well. So pick a Friday, come out and see us on a Happy Hour Friday. Come out to all of them starting tomorrow. Have a beer with us, $3.50 Bud Light Drafts, $4 Neutral Vodka Seltzers at Giuliano's, Ocean Heights, EHT. We're going to be giving away tickets to Smashing Pumpkins, Green Day. Now, you and Nick were talking about Smashing Pumpkins, Green Day.
Right. My thing is that, for someone like myself, I'd be more excited to go see Green Day.
Really?
Someone like you would be more excited to go see Smashing Pumpkins. And I described it as a bit of a generational thing. I think for different generational people, you might have an inclination to certain music acts.
Well, they both came up about the same time.
They did, but
they're both in the same generation.
But I feel like because of, some of the music that you seem to like, you like the Stone Temple Pilots and the REMs and things like that, Smashing Pumpkins fits in with that vibe more, whereas Green Day fits in with, part of what my generation was all about was, we're against the man, rebellion, tell the authority figures to bleep off, we're going to rock out and do our thing.
Maybe.
You're not buying that.
No. I think they're both similar genre. They both would be considered in that like alt-rock, anti-establishment type of era.
I don't really think a Smashing Pumpkin is very anti-establishment.
Well, you'd be wrong. Listen to Bullet with Butterfly Wings. The world is a vampire.
I wouldn't put World as a Vampire in the same category as, let's say, like Rage Against the Machine and Green Day.
Well, listen to it again and then get back to me on that. I'm going to see the Pumpkins, but I can't go now because I'm going to the World Series. So someone can have my tickets, and we're giving away tickets every hour. Green Day, Smashing Pumpkins, Citizens Bank Park. It's the biggest concert event of the summer, and we have tickets all day tomorrow. Stop out, and 10 listeners get to enter for this year's 99 Bottles Party. That's all tomorrow at Giuliano's. Come on out and see us. Sports Bash on 97.3.
We have the...
Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One with pico and creamy chipotle ranch, and the other with bacon and avocado ranch. Chicken expert since 1990. Taco expert since now. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
for sitting in traffic.
You come with me.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
4:30, Knicks Nuggets, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. So, no Phils tonight, right? Phils have the night off. They'll be back tomorrow. Weekend series against the Guardians. Good Guardians team coming into town here. Let's get Knicks Nuggets for today with Nick Earnshaw, host of the Shift podcast. And, of course, you can hear him producing the Locker Room weekends on the 97.3 ESPN. What are you on Locker Room Sunday this week, right?
I'm on Sunday. Sunday this week, I'm on the Locker Room. We'll have some fun with the Schweiner, no doubt. It's always crazy on that show, isn't it?
Sure is. Yes, it is.
And I know we'll get into some Phillies, and I need to get into some Phillies right now with you, Mike. And we've been talking about the bullpen, it feels like forever, right? For a couple months, now this whole week with the disaster with Jose Alvarado. He's been bad this year, or the past couple of weeks. And then you have Gregory Soto falling apart yesterday. Now, there's another nugget that's out there right now. Did you see that the A's have placed all-star closer Mason Miller on the injured list? He's on the 15-day DL after an awkward injury on the training table while he was getting ready to do an exercise. That was the clarification. So Mason Miller, a top trade target that's been talked about across Major League Baseball, he is now on the 15-day DL. How does this impact the Phillies? Well, they've been a name that's been thrown out there as a possible landing spot for Mason Miller. He's 25 years old, and now he's on the injured list. This is going to shake up the deadline for sure because we've talked about it, Mike. Who do you trust right now in the Phillies bullpen? They got to go out and get somebody. He's a right-hander. I know you were talking about possible right-hander earlier in the show. This could hurt his value. Maybe you can get him at a lower price at this point. Wait for him to come back. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But, Mike, Mason Miller, Nugget number one, he's on the IL.
Yeah, he broke his pinky in frustration. Yep. So he is legitimately on the injured list.
Mike, I'll interrupt you there. They're reporting now that he didn't do it in frustration. It was, according to Martin Gallegos, he's the Oakland A's beat reporter. He said, important clarification on Mason Miller injury. He did not pound the table out of frustration. He put his hand down awkwardly on the training table while getting ready to do an exercise. That's the reporting now coming out. They made a clarification.
Well, whatever it may be, he will probably not be traded. We talked with Jim Duquette last week on the show. He was a guest on the Sports Bash, former MLB general manager, and he said the A's will not trade him because it doesn't make sense to trade him because of the compensation they can get back if he ends up winning the Rookie of the Year award. There's a draft pick that's involved in that. So he said they weren't going to trade him anyway. So this probably solidifies the fact that he would not be traded. So, yeah, you take that off the board now. Mason Miller, if you had any thoughts there. The big thing that I keep kind of scratching my head about, Nick, is all these reports about the Phillies and starting pitching. Garrett Crochet, Jack Flaherty. We talked about them yesterday. There was a proposed trade over at Bleacher Report for Tarek Skubal today, in which the Phillies gave up Painter, Miller, and Crawford to get Skubal.
That's crazy. There's no way they do that. I get he's number one in the Cy Young. He's going to run away with it. I've seen Skubal's name thrown out there a ton on some mock trades that have been written out there. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Dave Dombrowski's done it in the past. We mentioned yesterday on the show that he did it with David Price in 2018 with the Boston Red Sox. Like, he's done that and added to a spot where they already had a bunch of talent there, which the Phillies do have in their starting pitching. It's very peculiar that they would go after a starting pitcher. The Crochet thing, it's about durability with him. Maybe you make him a reliever. I don't know. You could possibly do that down the line, but I think you would want him starting. But he's going to hit his innings limit as well. But the names that I just keep ringing a bell in my head are Tanner Scott. I know he's a lefty, but he's legit. He's a name that they could go after in Miami. He's been really good as a closer there. And Carlos Estevez. He's another name in Los Angeles who's had a really good season for them. So
we talked about Estevez yesterday. The problem with Estevez is a few things. One, never been on the mound in the ninth inning of a playoff situation. That's one. Two, not a big strikeout guy. He averages less than a strikeout an inning. So now you're talking about a guy who has to get the final three outs, and you're generally not bringing him in to strike guys out. he's coming in and getting guys out by putting the ball in play, which is not a great recipe for a lot of closers.
Yeah, that doesn't concern me as much. I get his strikeout rate's not high. Now, if let's say you brought him in, is there a guy on the team right now you trust in the ninth inning you'd give the ball? If you bring in another reliever, if he's more of like a setup guy, middle relief type guy, but he's locked down, would you have someone like a Hoffman kind of lock down that ninth inning and leave him there?
Well, we talked about this earlier. The problem with Hoffman, great year. But the final 3 outs are the hardest 3 outs. And there's a difference in getting the final 3 outs in June than there is in October. And sometimes you say, well, how do you get those outs in October if you've never done it before? That's great. But a lot of times that happens on your way to try to winning the World Series. So he would have been the closer last year, got the feel of it, those type of things. Matt Strahm, he's having a great year, but he generally doesn't get the 3 most important outs of the game. The Phillies don't really have a guy on the team that gets the 3 most important outs in October. That's the problem that they're facing right now. Tanner Scott, same problem, has not been on the mound to get the final 3 outs of a game in October. Those are the issues that you end up having. Mason Miller, by the way, hasn't either. So at some point, you have to either say this guy's stuff is so good, and that's where I think Miller usurps a player like Estevez. His strikeout numbers are just so off the charts that he's going to strike you out in April, May, June, October, you name it. Estevez, different situation. He's a high put the ball in play rate guy, and that just gives more opportunities for a little blooper down the right field line or a little, dinker up the middle, seeing-eye single. You want your guy to either be a big-time closer with the pressure that knows how to get people out in that moment or can blow fastballs right past you.
Yeah, well, I'll even throw this name out there, too, that I've seen kind of reported as a possible closer for the Phillies that they could target. Kyle Finnegan in Washington leads the league in saves. I think he's an all-star. This could be someone they could go after. And we've talked about the A's possibilities with Brent Rooker and Mason Miller. Now that's kind of off the table with Miller. You could kill 2 birds with 1 stone if you go out and maybe get a Lane Thomas and a Finnegan. That could be another option if you want to trade with Washington, because Washington's still trying to rebuild. They have some young players down in Washington right now. They're going to try and continue to load up on young guys. Maybe you move, one of your top prospects. You get a Finnegan, you get a Lane Thomas. You're able to do that. You move maybe one of Crawford, Miller, Painter to go and do that, and you wouldn't have to give up as many prospects. But that's another option. Finnegan's been really good this year. He's an all-star. Yep. That could be a possibility too.
Same problem. Hasn't got the 3 biggest outs in a big moment.
See, there's all these closers out there, but they're all on bad teams. That's why the names are up there. And then, it's a little bit of a concern, but it's not my high priority. If they're able to come in the ninth and get the job done, high leverage situations, they've shown it throughout the year, I'd go after them. I'd do it.
Hey, listen, they need to get another arm back there. Whether it's look, if you're ready to say, look, we need to get another arm so that Hoffman can be the guy, fine. Unless you get someone that is clearly the guy, maybe you get someone just to make Hoffman the guy.
Yeah, maybe you could do that as well. I mean, you need another armor back there.
I think that's becoming evident that you need another right-hander in the back end of the bullpen. Kerkering, I like Kerkering a lot. He might just not be ready for the moment yet. I mean, he's got great stuff, but he just doesn't command it enough to be trustworthy in big moments.
For me, it's not. I don't like righty and lefty. I mean, they could go either way because Alvarado's struggling, Gregory Soto's struggling. Like those 2 guys, I don't have a ton of confidence in right now either. Kerkering makes sense. Go get a righty. I don't even care which way they go because either way, I feel like you're still not confident in Kerkering. You're not confident in Alvarado right now. Soto, you can't send out there in the 8th or 9th inning. You're not confident in him. They need to be in lower leverage situations. So whichever way they go, I don't think it really matters. They just need another option.
I think you're right about the needing another option. We'll see where they go. I know, obviously, you're right about the – I think they're just trying to give Alvarado maybe a little break, just trying to get him kind of mentally back. I talked about this earlier in the show. He's had a big workload the last couple of years. Relievers are volatile, and he's had a lot of appearances over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we said before. They need to give him kind of those low leverage innings to try and build himself back up and maybe not send him out there as much here in the second half of the season so they could have him rested and ready to go once October comes. It's going to be fascinating. The deadline's right around the corner. I can't wait, Mike Gill, for the trade deadline to get here and see what the Phillies are doing.
Less than a week.
Wait.
Let's go.
It's going to be fun. All right. Nugget number 2, got to move to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, there was something said at a press conference today from one of the players, and one of the newer players today, Devin White on the defensive side, linebacker, used to play in Tampa Bay, won a Super Bowl there, big part of their defense for a while. Now he is here in Philadelphia. He mentioned a group chat that he started with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. Apparently, it's called Accountability. That's the name of the group chat. And he sent a picture of a glass half full and told them they got to keep pouring into it. And they send motivational quotes in this group chat. It's just those 3. So they're the top, I guess, leaders now of the team. They got a group chat. I just got to get your thoughts on, is it corny? Is it, is this leadership? Is this a good thing? Showing camaraderie from some of the top guys on the team? What is your take? Because mine, it's a little corny, but I see where they're going with it.
What, the fact that they have a group chat called Accountability? That's corny?
A little bit. I'm not going to lie. It's a little corny.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, you just hope that they follow through with it, right? I mean, if you're going to have 3 guys in the group and it's called accountability, you better make sure they're keeping people accountable, including themselves.
All right. I don't know. I just feel like they could have thought of a better name than calling it accountability. I mean, they could have did something better than that. I don't know what it was.
I never heard that you could have a group chat that has a title to it.
Whoa. Hold on. Let's back up for a second. You don't know you can name group chats? Is this part of the Android problem that you and Josh have going on over there? I mean, I name group chats all the time, and we have them for certain festivities that are going on. We put the date of the festivities or the party or whatever. You've never named a group chat?
No. Like I have my college roommates, and it just has all their names that come up on my it's just the names.
Is Android that far behind? There's no way. There's got to be a way to edit the name of the group chat.
There probably is. I just haven't done it.
Wow. Yeah. So you can name with the iPhone, if you come over to the good side, Mike, you can name group chats. You could also put a profile picture for the group chat.
Josh says he can do it on Android. I just haven't even cared enough to look or.
So you just haven't delved into naming each group chat. I'm sure they got iPhones. I mean, they're not like you and Josh with the dinosaur and the Android over there. You two are dinosaurs with those things. Apple, you got the you got the naming. You can see it. You can have the profile picture. You can make a picture for your group chat. Whatever. That's what you can do. I do some funny pictures on profile pictures for the group chat. Yeah. So
yeah, I can name mine. Like I have different ones for different teams I coach, and they're at the top. You just kind of scroll through them and click on it, and then it brings that up.
I helped Billy Schweim learn what airdropping meant. So I taught him that. I hope he's listening, that he knows he can name a group chat. I hope he knows that. Because I have to teach him something new about his cellular device every single weekend. Now I'm teaching you, Mike. It's like I'm doing the whole station a favor here.
Thanks a lot.
That's great. But yeah, so I'm assuming they probably have a motivational quote as their profile picture of the group chat, accountability right underneath.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I kind of, look, where's Devin White fit into this, though? I mean, is he a guy that I don't know that he's on the same level as Hurts and A.J. Brown. I hope he is.
My argument is, why isn't there more defensive guys in there? I get A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, big names, some of the leaders on this team. Maybe add another defensive guy in there. Maybe add Slay in there.
I was going to say, Slay would be the guy, right?
Yeah, I would think so, because Fletcher Cox isn't there anymore. I mean, they're very young defense. I'd add Darius Slay. He better get added into the group chat. That's what I'm calling for.
Yeah, Darius Slay would probably be the other guy, maybe, because Jalen Carter might be a little too young to put in there.
Yeah, because I believe all the Bulldogs probably have a group chat. They probably got the Bulldog profile pic at this point.
I would love to, how you're on a football team with 53 guys. I mean, how do you keep up? Who's in what group chats? Are you in multiple group chats? How do you keep, up with, not messing up who you're responding to?
I'm sure you get the main group chat with all the team members in there, right? Majority of the players are in one group chat. And then you have maybe quarterbacks, you got the accountability group chat, wide receivers group chat, defensive line. I feel like it's divvied up maybe by position because you're with those guys all day.
Yeah, I just, when somebody's in multiple group chats and the name comes, I don't know, I guess because you're saying you name them, their name doesn't come across. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to name them, and I feel like there's an identity to group chats, right? Like you got like you have one conversation over here you can have with the same person in another group chat, but it's a totally different conversation. There's different elements to each group chat.
I have my college roommates in one. I have one with some other WVU friends in that one. There's like my fantasy football league guys have one. I don't really I don't keep up a lot with the group chats.
So,
I've had this conversation before where it's very odd. Some people I communicate with, like, not through text. Like, Josh and I communicate through, like, Messenger.
So you go through Messenger to communicate.
Yeah, like some people we communicate through Messenger as opposed to text. Maybe because I have Android. In Messenger, you can see that the person received it.
Yes, because you
so
have
like
Android,
at least like I know, hey, I sent them a message and they got it. As opposed to if I send the text out, you don't know whether they saw it or what they're doing with it.
Yes, because you have the green message that comes up on my phone. So I don't know if you read it. I don't know if you saw my text, whatever. So, I mean, that's the problem here. You're still on the green message.
Right, but that's why, but there's other ways to get around that where I don't need to get a crapple. I can keep my good phone and message people and still find out whether or not they read it or not.
See, now you're taking up more storage on your phone because you're downloading another app to use a message when you could just use a text message.
No,
you just have an app.
You don't have Facebook Messenger on your phone?
No, I don't use Facebook. I don't use Facebook that often. The Messenger, I got texting for that.
Okay. Well, I'm 47. I'm still there.
I got to get you with the times. You got to start naming your group chats. Because you know what's great about that is you can put dates for events. And now I'm reminded when a text goes off in that group chat, oh, that's coming up this weekend. All right. I see it.
All right. I'll look into it.
All right. Good.
I don't have enough group chats that I care. Like, I just don't like to participate in them.
All right. Well, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to start an accountability group chat for 97.3 ESPN. I'm going to add everyone in there, and that we're going to keep each other accountable. Glass half full. All right.
Yeah, after a certain time of the night, I'm out on the chats.
All right. So like what? 9 o'clock? You're out. 10 o'clock?
It varies. Yeah. Sometimes like last night, no Phillies game. I'm pretty much like into we watched Ted Lasso last night. So when no Phillies game, my attention's to the lady. We watched the shows together. I don't want to be distracted answering the text messages. So
there you go.
Like last night, she said, she's got her craft stuff that she does for her business and stuff. So she said, "Are the Phillies on tonight, or do you want to watch the show together?" I said, "No Phillies tonight. Show."
No Phillies.
And I try to put the phone away.
Boom. That's good. So for me, it's like I don't even pay attention to most of the group chats. I miss tons of conversations. I just have them on silent.
Yeah, well, my phone never have a ringer on. Never.
Just have them on silent. Certain group chats I leave it on, but some group chats I mute and I'll go back maybe if I want to join in on the
So what I do is I have the watch on. So the ringer's off, so I don't get the ringer, but the watch will buzz, vibrate on my wrist, so I can look to see if there's something important.
Something going on. Something you need to.
Yeah. So if breaking news happens or something happens, the watch gives me the alert, but I won't respond on the watch.
Okay, gotcha. I think you can respond on the watch.
You can,
right?
but I'm not going to go out of my way just to be in a conversation. It's more to just say, okay, that text is my friends being idiots. I don't need to respond to that.
All right, so I will start the 97.3 ESPN accountability group chat. I'll put the profile pic. I'll put the name of the group chat. That's what we're going to do. Send the glass half full, motivational quotes. We got it all covered. All right. I got one last nugget for you, Mike, before we get out of here. So there's been a lot of signings, trades, whatever you want to call it, throughout the past couple of months. New players coming to Philadelphia. So I got to ask, Paul George, Matvei Michkov comes over, Kelly Oubre's back, Caleb Martin, all these names. Eagles made some signings throughout the offseason. Saquon Barkley, Phillies, trade deadline coming up. Who is the next Philadelphia athlete jersey you would get? Who's the one you're buying? You're going out, you're spending all the money on the jersey. Who you buying?
I'm a bad guy to ask this because I'm not a jersey guy.
I know, but you got to ask. But if you had to choose one, if you're out there, who's the jersey you're buying right now?
Probably Bryce Harper.
No, out of the new player. You got to pick a new player.
Oh, new guy. Okay.
New guy.
So I would say probably Michkov.
I think it's got to be Michkov. There's no doubt it's Michkov. Paul George is a close second, but Michkov, he's 19. He's going to be here for a while.
Yeah, he's 19. He's going to be here, right? Exactly.
And there hasn't been a lot of Flyers jerseys you've been able to get anywhere over the past few years.
I like a hockey sweater.
Yeah, I got to get.
I'm certainly not going with a basketball tank top.
Well, I get the I'm a big Jersey guy. I'll go Jersey instead of the jersey. That's what I'll go. I'll go that route instead of getting the jersey. I cheap out on the jersey.
By the way, I just got a group text.
There you go. You see it? Did they change the name of the group?
No, I just saw it come across my watch. So people who watch the video probably see me every now and then just look down at my watch because it zip. You know.
So you got to go in and you got to change the names of all your group chats. All right, that's your homework for tonight heading into tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
All right, Mike. That's 3 nuggets for me. 3-pack for you today. I'll see you in the group chat.
All right, yeah. We'll see you in the group chat, man. All right, don't forget Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, Knicks Nuggets tomorrow here on the Sports Bash. I'm Mike Gill. Yeah, I the group chat stuff, too much. I can't keep up with it sometimes. I try to minimize the amount of phone usage, how they tell you on your screen now how much your screen time. I saw it one day. I said, it's just too much.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know I can rename my groups. I can put special icons and graphics. I just don't want to take the time to do that. I'm like you, Mike. I'm on my phone too much. I don't need to now spend time organizing my chats on my phone.
Yeah, I have not. And listen, I don't have a whole heck of a lot. My roommates from college and there's like 5 of us in there, and then I have the one with Todd and Pete, Pete G.
The famous one.
Yeah. The 3 of us, have one going, and then I have a couple other ones that are just like,
But like they're the ones that will text you like late at night, and you're like, I don't need to reply.
Oh, those 2 are relentless.
Yeah.
And Todd, of course, is on the West Coast.
Oh, which makes it even more complicated.
So he's texting at like all hours of the night.
Yeah, like 1, 2 in the morning.
I wake up in the morning, 37 missed texts.
Yeah, and you're like, really?
Too much. Sports Bash is live tomorrow. Stop out and see us. Happy Hour Friday. We'll be at Giuliano's in Egg Harbor Township. Stop out, have a beer, and, of course, enter to win tickets to see the Smashing Pumpkins and Green Day at Citizens Bank Park August the 9th. We're giving tickets away every hour tomorrow on the show. Plus, 10 listeners tomorrow are going to get entered into this year's 99 Bottles Party. 99 bottles, 10 listeners tomorrow get an automatic entry tomorrow at Giuliano's with Bud Light, $3.50 drafts, $4 neutral vodka seltzers. That's tomorrow for Happy Hour Friday here on the Sports Bash. When we come back, would Bob Wankel make any of these trades? That's next.
This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
All right, 5 o'clock, Sports Bash. We've had a busy day today. A lot of people texting in. The text board has been unusually busy today. Not unusually, just been busy for a July Thursday. Poured rain earlier. A lot of Eagles, a lot of Phillies. Let's get back into the Phillies. Let's get it back to the Phillies, as they say, right? Somebody said that one time? I don't think so. Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, his newsletter, Red October Philly. The Eagles going to be on the back burner for a couple of minutes here with Bob Wankel here as we are less than a week to the trade deadline, Bob. And the trade deadline has started to heat up with the Phillies' recent play. Is it starting to get you concerned?
I will try to bring a positive spin to things if I can. I try to keep it objective, but try to bring a positive spin to things. And the only thing I can say positive in this moment is that at least all of these things are happening at a time when the Phillies have to make big decisions about where this team is headed beyond the trade deadline moving into October. And it has been ugly these past 3 series. This week in Minnesota was very flat and disappointing effort, blowing a 3-run lead to cap it all off, which is how they opened the trip as well in Pittsburgh. So they are leaking oil right now, and I think it will give this front office certainly something to think about here, Mike. They've got to do some things here.
Well, all right, so there's a lot out there, right? Obviously, we've been hearing so much about they need this right-handed bat. We've been hearing this for 3 years, though, right? Really, they've been needing this right-handed bat in the middle of the lineup for 3 seasons, it feels like. They still haven't gone out and done that in any of the 3 seasons. Starting pitching. Are you surprised that we're hearing a lot of big-name starting pitchers' names start to emerge? Or is that just, hey, it's the deadline, those are names that are out there, and the Phillies are going to be involved? But we've heard, Garrett Crochet and Flaherty and Tarek Skubal, who's the Cy Young leader right now. I mean, is that where they should be looking at their attention? Are you surprised if they would be involved on a pitcher at that level?
I think my first takeaway coming into this is that there's just so many different reports out there and smoke screens, and where is the information coming from? How much of it is coming from the Phillies in a genuine or from a genuine place and not a deflecting place or a smoke screen place? How much of it is coming from opposing GMs? How much of it is speculation, right? Like, I think that's the first thing. And there are 2 different schools of thought here. The Phillies are a pretty good team. They've been the best team in the National League, I think, for the majority of the season. But do they look up and they see teams like the Dodgers now getting healthier on the pitching front? Glasnow will come back. Clayton Kershaw will come back. That rotation is going to look a lot different than the one that we saw here in Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago. So if it's about winning it all, and it is, like, unequivocally, this is about winning the World Series in 2024, and anything short of winning the World Series will be considered a disappointment, I think, not by just the fans, but by the team internally as well. So do you need to make that splash needle mover type of transaction, or can you just shore some things up by adding another bullpen arm that might not be the best on the market? Can you shore things up by adding a Lane Thomas, the complimentary right-handed bat, or do you have to go out and seriously drop the hammer? And if you're going to do that and you're going to make that move, then what gives you the best chance when you get to October to do it? And you look at a guy like Skubal, like, he has, over his last 35 starts dating back to late last season, August of 23, he's been the best starter in Major League Baseball. He has been. So, though it seems a little bit insane,
right? Do you need to go to that level?
That is a needle mover.
Do you need to go to that level?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is, what are you looking at beyond 2024? What do you see as your organizational outlook beyond this season? The Phillies should be pretty good again next year. Are they going to be as well positioned though? Like, let's just say, for instance, right, you were to take a guy like Andrew Painter, you were to take a guy like Aiden Miller, and you were to take Crawford and Justin Crawford and said, like, all right, how do we really evaluate these 3 guys? Like, just say you took all 3 of those guys, right, and said, we're gonna go out and get Skubal. It's gonna cost us all 3 of them. Okay, so let me lay that out for you. Where does Aiden Miller fit in this current Phillies roster? Do you believe in Bryson Stott long term? Do you believe in Alec Bohm long term? If you do, you have your infield solidified for the next handful of years. Where is he cracking the lineup? Now, the Phillies have plenty of outfield questions. I don't think Nick Castellanos will be here beyond his current contract. Kyle Schwarber is never going to be an everyday outfielder ever again, even if he's here beyond his current contract. You don't know what Johan Rojas is, and you don't know what Brandon Marsh is at this point. Like, you know, he's a decent player. He can play corner outfield spots for you, and he can hit righties. But is he more than that? So there's a lot of uncertainty there. But do you want to trade Justin Crawford as your best outfield prospect? I would just point to the fact that 5 of their first picks in this past draft, 4 of them were outfielders. So to me, that signals to me that they would be comfortable, despite what some of the reports say, in making a potential move with him. So where do these guys factor in? And that's why I think you might be a little bit more confident in involving them in packages than you'd otherwise want to be.
That's interesting. So just perusing the getting ready for a show today, doing a little research, came across a trade proposal. Skubal for Crawford, Painter, and Miller. Does somebody balk there?
Well, I think that most Phillies fans would say absolutely not. No way. They don't even need a starting pitcher. It's more about the bullpen. It's more about the outfield piece. And I get it. I hear that. The only other thing would be, let me just kind of tie it into what I was just saying. Like, okay, so Andrew Painter, he's going to be a big part of this rotation moving forward. There's a lot of value in having team control. Great. But project it out. And if you bring Skubal back in a trade, you're going to have Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Christopher Sanchez, and Skubal all under contract at least through 2026, and 3 of the 4 guys through 2027. You have 4 awesome arms, 2 years beyond this one. So could you stomach trading Andrew Painter in that scenario? Yeah, you could, but you better make sure that the move you're making is really, truly in your evaluation for a difference-making piece if you're going to involve these names, especially 2 of 3 or all 3 of them.
Yeah, the Painter thing, is, hey, we're flipping out Painter and we're bringing in an established young pitcher who's already pitched at this level and you have under team control. So that one you can swallow a little bit more. It's the fact that you're also including your 2 best positional prospects and saying, hey, is this guy coming back enough that we can stomach that? And you laid out some reasons why it might be in that, look, where is Miller going to play and when?
And maybe the answer to that is Bryson Stott continues to hit the way that he has this season. He does not take that next step. And I'm not saying he has till the end of the year to prove it, but he may not have 2026 to prove it. So, you can free up a spot pretty quickly here if Bryson Stott doesn't get it going. Alec Boehm's having a great year. There's been some ups and downs. Are you sure that he is going to be what he is right now, or that he might even be better than that? They're going to have decisions that they make. It's not like Miller's completely blocked. But if they internally are confident that what they have is good enough and might get better, and they're willing to sign these guys long term, well, then he is blocked. So you have to weigh it out. All
right, another trade proposal that has come across, and this one seems to be more that more people have kind of an outfielder, Lewis Robert Jr., Justin Crawford, Mick Abel. I don't know that anybody's balking at Mick Abel at this point. He's got an ERA near 7 at AAA. But are you just saying, hey, we're willing to give up Crawford to get a player who right now is hitting in the 220s and on base percentage under 300? But do you take the chance that if he comes here, it's good enough?
Yeah, he got a little bit of a late start this year, coming back from injuries, and I wonder what his motivation is at the moment, other than maybe trying to play his way out of Chicago. That team is all-time dreadful. So I think you have to take that into account at least a little bit. He is under control through 2027, though you're paying him. The last 2 years are club options at $20 million each, so he's not cheap. It's not like it's it's not a discount deal. It's a discount to what his relative value might be on the open market if he gets it going, but it's not cheap to acquire him financially. I think he is a difference-making bat. I don't think that the Phillies are ultimately going to end up with him for whatever that's worth, but would I do that deal? I probably would. The thing about Justin Crawford is, for anybody that's listening to this and hasn't seen him play or doesn't really know what the story is, really good athlete, right? Excellent athlete, very rangy in the outfield, could play all 3 positions. Some people see him as a legit everyday center fielder with plus range, 20-homer potential. The only thing I would say is that he's a little bit lanky. He has 6 homers this year. He only has 9 homers and over 700 career minor league at-bats. I think it's quite a projection to see him as a 20-homer a year guy. He might get there. He's very young, but it's a lot of projection. And can he change some things in his swing? Last year, he hit ground balls at a 75% rate. And it wasn't going to work. Now he's down into the high 50s this year, so he's made progress. But is he going to be that splash all-star type player? I think that there are some questions about that.
Yeah. And you mentioned the path. Where's the path for Crawford? All these guys. Miller, somebody texts in and says you can play Miller at first. Bohm goes at third. Bohm goes to first. That's the big question with a lot of these guys. What's their path to get here? When can they help this team out? And how does that balance the prime years of Harper, Turner? I don't know what more you're getting out of Schwarber, how many more prime years you're getting out of him, Real Muto. You got to make a decision. Do we want to try to win with this core group, or are we thinking about when these guys can help us?
Yeah, look, and I do think that the path for Crawford is much more clear than it is for, a guy like Miller. In that the outfield, there are just a lot of questions. Honestly, if we look at this, part of the reason we're having this conversation is because there's so many question marks in the outfield. And if you look at the Phillies' current top 10 prospects, their top 10 prospect list, there's only one other outfielder on it. It's Gabriel Rincones, and he's number 9 in the MLB pipeline rankings. So what they've just drafted, they feel pretty good about. I know coming in, but you're a couple years away there. I think that there's a lot of uncertainty in the outfield. So if Crawford sticks in the system post this trade deadline, I think that there's a reasonable shot that he's playing for the Phillies at some point late next year, maybe 2026. I mean, they have so many questions. Like Mike, honestly, like how many times can we talk about Johan Rojas? Do you believe in his bat? I don't. I don't believe in Johan Rojas. It's very clear. I just don't think that he's an everyday major league center fielder. I don't. And maybe he gets there and improves, and I'm certainly not rooting against that or anything, but I don't see it. I think that some of the instincts and some of the base running blunders, like, can the Phillies really trust that as they're trying to win a World Series and playing every day?
Getting picked off the other day in Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
All of these proposals and talks, most of the stuff we're hearing, the high-end starting pitchers, which I think is surprising, Crochet, Flaherty, those guys would be, Flaherty would be interesting. He was traded to Baltimore last year to kind of help them because they had no pitching. I mean, is he a guy that is like Michael Lorenzen? Hey, he's a guy who helps us out, but we don't know what to do with him. Like, the 4 guys they have right now, I can't imagine. Is there a scenario where one of those 4 are not pitching a playoff game? They get somebody to bounce one of those guys out of a playoff rotation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that right now it's hard to imagine that. That being said, if you were to replace Flaherty, I think is kind of, to me, doesn't make a ton of sense because you're going to have to pay for him. He's been very good this year.
Yeah, he's on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, you could make an argument that. Would you feel more comfortable with him starting than one of those 4 guys? Well, the way that Ranger Suarez is going,
he was
right now
awful for Baltimore last year.
He was,
yeah.
And so I just don't know that is the guy. I mean, it depends obviously what cost is. If you got him with a reasonable haul, sure, great. But I just don't. I think if you do that, then I think you're also looking on the back end for somebody to take on Taijuan Walker. You're probably going to absorb a lot of his contract.
Yeah.
But I don't see bringing a guy like Flaherty in. And like, what is Taijuan Walker even doing here at that point?
Well, how many teams? Okay, so I got a guy who's been texting in all day about Taijuan Walker. The Angels send them there, have them. Are there teams? Is Walker a guy you can trade and then absorb the contract, or do people say I have no interest in him at all? And there's 2 years left on his deal.
Yeah, I think you'd have to absorb a good deal of the contract, and then the case for it is he's a good teammate. He can eat innings. You could do a lot worse. Like, there are teams around the league that would take Taijuan Walker and start him, and even some teams that are fringe playoff contenders. The Phillies have been in a spot where they've been fortunate that the starting pitching's been so good that there's like zero patience for Taijuan Walker, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no appetite to watch him go through what he's gone through. But I still think that he is employable as a back of the rotation starter, even for a fringe playoff contender. I do. And
He's
that's not what
employable. It's like a guy who just got released from prison and you're just trying to give him a chance here. Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, look, I just don't know where he fits into the long-term picture for this team. So would they take calls on that? I would think so.
Sure. I mean, I imagine the Phillies, if somebody called and said, hey, we'll take the Walker deal off your hands. But I would imagine, like, for instance, a Mike Trout who has that $250 million contract. Are you sending Taijuan Walker back to them to say, we'll take the Trout deal if you take the Walker deal? At that point, why would the Angels want to, unless you're saying I'll absorb the Walker money?
I don't know that it's that. I mean, maybe you could do some type of swap, but I think it's more like, look, this guy is an established pitcher. He's owed $18 million each of the next 2 years. We take on 14 of it. You take on 4 for a guy that can maybe take down 170 innings for you and have a good veteran presence. Like, I think some teams would be interested at that price. Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Okay. So where are we with this bullpen today?
Look, I mean, overall, like I think the Phillies bullpen is pretty good, but they're going through it right now. There's no question about it. I mean, Ryan Kerkering is really struggled here the last couple times out. I don't think there's a ton of trust in Jose Alvarado in this moment. I do think that the Phillies, you may not as a listener, or Mike, you as a sports radio host, have a lot of trust in Jose Alvarado, but I still think the Phillies are reasonably confident in him. I can just tell you my perspective. I'm not going to drop anybody else's name here, but I have a group chat with a couple other Phillies writers.
Is the group chat? Does it have a title? Is it named?
No, it doesn't. There's no title to it. But I had said when Gregory Soto had entered the game, yesterday, I said there's a 7% chance that this game reaches extra innings. You know, like he was not going to get through that ninth. He just wasn't. And there's certain guys that I think Gregory Soto has a role. I think it could be an important role. It is not a ninth inning high leverage role. It's just it's not. He's just not that guy. I know he had a couple good seasons in Detroit where he finished games. That's come and gone for him. He has not shown any ability whatsoever to handle that moment. Yeah. And
in that moment yesterday,
the latest example.
Let's talk about that moment real fast because Kerkering has struggled, and he can't get his job done. They have to go to Strahm earlier because it looked like they wanted Kerkering the 7th, Strahm in the 8th, and Hoffman in the 9th. But because Kerkering can't get out of the 7th, they have to go to Strahm to finish that inning, and now Hoffman has to come in an inning earlier. And now you're sitting there and saying, well, we don't have any confidence, or we want to give Alvarado maybe a little rest or a little mental break, so we go to Soto there. That's not a guy that they would consider in that spot, though.
Yeah, and look, here's the other thing. The key to, if you just want to talk about yesterday's game, like Kerkering's inning was probably where things sort of went off the rails. You cannot give those free passes with that lead in that spot. You just can't do it. But I will say, like, as good as Aaron Nola was yesterday, and I'm not pinning this on Aaron Nola, but what changed that game was that Aaron Nola's pitch count was sitting in the mid-80s with 2 outs in the 6th inning. And they worked him, and they worked him, and they worked him, and they got him out of the game. It looked like for a moment that Aaron Nola was getting you into the 7th yesterday. And it's the same thing. It kind of elongated the game, and then they were left vulnerable at the end. And I mean, it also helps that Brandon Marsh doesn't catch a routine fly ball in the gap.
All right, I'm glad you said that. It looks, the angle on television's weird. It looks like he got to the ball and just shut his glove early. I mean, I don't know if it was just outstretched arm or that he just shut his glove early and missed it, because it seems like he has taken routes like that and misses balls like that somewhat frequently.
Yeah, there's something is kind of going on there with him right now. He's striking out a ton. You saw a couple awkward moments in the outfield yesterday. It looks like he's hurt. I mean, it does look like he's hurt, but then the thing is, the Phillies are super protective of their players. And so if he was that hurt, you know, and I wasn't there, I wasn't on the road, I didn't cover it, I didn't get to ask anybody about it. So I'm not gonna speculate here too much, but if he were really that hurt, would they have had him out there in that spot? I mean, they had other options to go play out in left field at that time, but there just seems to be something very strange with Brandon Marsh in this moment overall. And you know, maybe it is the elbow that's impacting him, but I mean, like the last 15 games, he's hitting 163. I mean, a lot of strikeouts. It's been a weird run for him here lately.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, listen, we talk a lot about it's 162. There's ups, there's downs, there's all the rounds, and sometimes you're just going through it, and it lasts 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. You know, one of the reasons why the Phillies, Bob, are where they are, if I told you in February, hey, you're going to have 2 all-star relief pitchers, I'm sure Hoffman and Strahm weren't your answer.
No, probably not. No, probably not. I mean, those guys have been so good. I just think that right now, just to go full circle on this, it's a long season. Every team, even the best teams, just open up the standings. And baseball's hard, right? Because fans listening to this, people that are interested in this conversation are watching the Phillies anywhere between 100 to 162 times a year, right? And we dissect and we analyze every single thing. Some fans, I'm sure, are watching the sport, the rest of the league, but most of them aren't. And so I think what happens is we see the flaws every single day. We see the deficiencies every single day, and we think, oh, this team's cooked. See, that's why they're not going to win it. And I would just say zoom out for a minute and look at some of the best teams in baseball right now. Baltimore's pitching is in shambles. It is atrocious. They can't close games. They need more starting pitching depth. But right now, they're one of the primary contenders to win the American League. The Yankees have been simply dreadful the last 32 games, 10-22. All of a sudden, they can't score and they can't get anybody out. They're a contender, right? I mean, like, just look around the sport and you see that every single team has glaring weaknesses. And, you know, right now the Phillies are going through it and they've got to figure out a way to address it.
Yep. And, you know, we talk about this a lot is when you get, you know, you have a great season, you get to a playoffs, and that's when the warts start to come out a little bit. Yeah, you had some problems over the course of the year. You start to figure them out. You hope the Phillies figure them out and pinpoint them and accurately do it. So is it the bullpen, that top-level starting pitcher, or that outfield bat. It's probably a combination of all three at this point.
Yeah, I think ultimately that there are multiple moves. I think that you see a reliever added to this mix that you feel good about late in games. And I think that you see that complementary bat in the outfield. I think that's the most likely outcome here. If something
is it Rodolfo Castro? Is it on that level?
No. It's got to be more than that.
I mean, that's what they did last year, dude. Come on.
Isn't that funny, though? Like, everything you read is like, well, if you know Dave Dombrowski's DNA at the deadline, he loves star players. He loves making the splash move. I'm like, yeah, all right. Like, history says that is true. But in the past 2 seasons, he hasn't done that, and certainly the circumstances were different. The Phillies were well out of a division race at that point. They were just trying to get into the playoffs and see what happens. This year, everyone's a little bit older. The window is closing. They're in a better spot. So I wonder if that alters the thinking, and I guess we're going to find out.
Well, and you just brought the point. The fact that they are playing from way ahead this time as opposed to the team charging from the backside, do they feel more pressure that, hey, we're the team that everybody's looking at, everybody thinks we're the best, we can't just add Rodolfo Castro?
Sure. I think they also have to look at it, though, and say, like, we're probably not going to we're probably not going to get caught in this division. So let's not worry about winning 104 games and making some crazy move that just makes us look like a super team. Let's figure out, when we get into the actual cadence of a postseason game, what do we need here to help us win that game? And I think that is what they are trying to figure out.
What?
If they start a tough lefty, are we equipped to combat that? If they have a run of left-handed hitters in their lineup and we have to go to one of our primary relievers in a high-leverage spot in the 6th inning, are we equipped to withstand that in the 8th inning? Like, those are the things I think you have to analyze, because that's what this is really about.
They have an off day on August 12th. Now, there might be one in there somewhere, but August 12th, they have an off day. By that day, it'll be interesting to see where they are. Cleveland, Yankees, Mariners, Dodgers, 4 games set out in Arizona. They're at Seattle, at L.A., at Arizona. By August 12th, we might have a much different or better feel about where this team is. That's
the way the East is going right now, it might be the Mets that are on their heels. I mean,
that too. The Mets are getting Senga back, right? And Diaz should be coming back.
Yeah, and they're swinging the bats a little bit. Lindor, the last 2 months, has played at an MVP-like level. And we'll see what happens there. But look, I mean,
Mets are a game and a half behind the Braves, by the way.
Yeah, and they play each other for 4 this weekend. Look, one thing I'll say before you let me out of here: Mariners not playing great baseball lately. Dodgers owe the Phillies one. That would be the series I would be very nervous about. Like, that's the one. But the Mariners and the Yankees, you look at the records and say, oh, okay, like near the top of the division, good teams. Like, those 2 teams have struggled quite a bit lately. So it's a tough stretch for the Phillies, but it's one that if they are as good as we all think they are, they should navigate with some success.
Yeah, this Cleveland team, by the way, is really good. They'll be here this weekend, starting tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The last time I went to the Phillies game, it was 107 degrees. I won't be back at Citizens Bank Park until it cools off a little bit. Bob Wankel will be covering the Phils, Crossing Broad, RedOctoberPhilly.com. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter, and we'll be back looking at the Phils as the trade deadline is on Tuesday. Bob will take a look at that. Good to see you, man.
All right, man. Talk soon.
All right, Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, RedOctoberPhilly.com. Check out his newsletter. As always, he joins us here on the Sports Bash. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. And, hey, I told you the other day, I drove over to Key Acura of Atlantic City. I said to Rocco, hey, you got that 2024 MDX that I've been talking about on the air? He said, I do. I said, well, I'm taking it. And I have not looked back. I've been driving that MDX. I love it. It's priced to move for you, and you could drive off the lot just like I did with the 2024 MDX all-wheel drive technology package for just $499 a month for 36 months with $49.95 down. That's right, $499 a month, low mileage lease for current Acura owners. So if you're somebody who has an Acura, you're an Acura driver, you know what I'm talking about. Hey, that MDX is nice. It is comfy. It is nice. It drives fantastic. It's got all of the accessories that you're looking for. There's only a few left, though, so get there now. Key Acura, Tilton Road, EHT, your small but friendly dealer. See dealer for details. When we come back, we got today's Big 3 here on the Sports Bash.
It's
Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
Mike Gill.
And I am the voice of the voiceless.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
5:33. It's time for the big three here on the Sports Bash. We've got some stuff from Vic Fangio. Fangio said a bunch of interesting. He's just a curmudgeon-y guy. It's going to be great. It's going to be great to have him. I guess the coordinators talk on, Tuesdays or Wednesdays during the year?
Yeah, they usually talk like a Tuesday or Wednesday, usually each year. And I can't. I'm already loving Fangio. I almost don't even care that he's a good coach. I just love the fact that, he's complaining about the fans making noise while he's doing the presser, telling the guys you can't hear their questions to speak up. He's telling the reporters, he's like, well, I've only been here for 2 days. What do you want me to tell you? He's giving all kinds of just like, I'm an old man. I want to coach football answers. I love it.
Yeah, he was pretty adamant about Bryce Huff. He came out and was like, somebody asked a question about him, playing on base downs, I guess, against the run. And he was like, well, did he look like he could do it today? Nope.
Right.
Like, he came right out. Apparently, Devin White came out and said that, I like him, man. He's coming out and telling you your play was piss poor.
Yeah.
He was.
That's what Jalen Carter said previously during OTAs and minicamp. He was like, I love this guy.
Yeah. So, look, he's not for everybody. That kind of coaching isn't for everybody. But maybe the Eagles have the right guys that it's for. Who knows?
Well, here's some of the things I want to get into with you, Mike, here for today's Big Three, being brought to you by Boxing Insider Promotions. The boxing event of the summer is tomorrow night. Mike, we already gave away our allotment of tickets for the event, so you got to go to Ticketmaster.com. If you want to see Atlantic City's Justin Figueroa, Absegami High School graduate Bruce Selden Jr., top-ranked heavyweight fighter Otto Whalen, and all the jam-packed card of all the action inside the Atlantic City Tropicana showroom. Tomorrow night is where all the action will be. Ticketmaster.com is how you get your tickets. And, of course, I'll be there tomorrow night as well with 97.3 ESPN. You'll be at Giuliano's for Happy Hour Friday. And then, if someone, goes out there, maybe wins some tickets for, Green Day and Smashing Pumpkins, they can swing on by the boxing at night.
Yeah, absolutely. You can kill two birds with one stone. You can stop by Happy Hour Friday. What time's the boxing tomorrow night?
So the doors open at 6:30. The fights begin after 7.
Okay, good.
So you got time. You could hang out with Mike Gill, Happy Hour Friday, then just scoot over to Atlantic City.
There you go. You got a whole Friday night planned.
Exactly. So, Mike, I wanted to start with this. You mentioned the Bryce Huff. So Vic Fangio was asked, well, what does Bryce Huff have to do to show that he can play all 3 downs? This was Fangio's answer.
Constantly show improvement and a feel. It's more of a feel. He has the talent to do it, but he's never been asked to do it. I don't think in college and nor with the Jets. So it's new, and he's got to become more proficient at it.
Told the truth.
Oh, he definitely didn't lie.
I guess the question you have to ask is, did the Eagles bring him in here thinking he was going to be able to play that role?
It's a great question because it's not like this team loaded up on a bunch of veteran defensive ends. They didn't load up on a ton of edge rushers to rotate with him. So the question is, can he do enough in the next month to prove that he should be on the field for all 3 downs, or is he just a specialist? I think it's a very interesting thing to look out for. Speaking of who will be on the field, Mike, all 3 downs, Vic Fangio admitted today there is a linebacker competition. For those who don't know, it has been Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond rotating next to Devin White. So it looks like it'll be Devin White and who? Here's Vic Fangio's perspective.
I like Zach. He's a guy that's played very little inside linebacker in his career. We think he can do it. Obviously, Devin's had a career where he has done it. Nakobe, has shown that he can do it in college. Really hadn't had the opportunity to do it here because his first year he was behind two good players, and last year he was injured. Same thing with Trotter, Ben, Orn. They're all in the mix, really.
They're all in the mix, he says, Mike.
I guess. I mean, none of them sound exciting. Trotter got hurt today. I know that. Ben has been a guy that a lot of people think have the skills or the athleticism. Right. He's a wild card here. Look, I think the Eagles want Nakobe Dean and Devin White to be the guys that win this job, but everything that he broke down there, I think, makes a lot of sense. Zach, he's a guy that has played very little inside linebacker. We think he can do it. We're about to find out. White, he's had a career where he's done it. He said he's done it, but has he done it to the level that you want him to?
Right.
Nakobe, he's shown that he could do it in college. Injuries.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I think his answer tells you what we all think. A lot of unknowns at that position.
I will throw in that Howie Roseman has spoken multiple times this offseason about Nakobe Dean and why they like Nakobe Dean. So we at least know the organization as a whole is invested in the idea of Nakobe Dean becoming something. It'll be interesting to see if he actually does or not.
Nakobe Dean, I thought last year, now he only played, 2 or 3 games before he got hurt. I thought last year he was going to be a big impact on this defense. The 2 or 3 games that he played, he was not.
Yeah, and it's really a shame because he was a key piece of those Georgia defenses in college, and you were hoping he could maybe replicate some of that success at this level.
Look, there were people that couldn't believe he wasn't a first-round pick, and then he fell to the 3rd round, and some people thought that was injury-related. Well, the injuries have been the problem here, but good play has not been a part of when he was on the field.
Right. It's not like he has flashed much at all when he's been on the field. Now, a guy who, on the field, James Bradbury, Mike's been getting reps at safety. He has either been playing the second-team defense or he's been the guy rotating in for C.J. Garner-Johnson. Well, Vic Fangio was asked a question. He was asked about, hey, we know guys have made the transition from corner to safety. Do you think Bradbury can do the same? And, well, this is probably the most Vic Fangio answer of the day.
The list of guys successfully transitioning from corner to safety is very small with success. There's guys that have done it, but it really wasn't what you want. And we'll see if he can do that. James has got a good feel for football, very knowledgeable, so that will help him in that transition. He's still going to play some corner for us, too.
All right, the last sentence intrigues me more than anything else because he's not going to play safety. He's either going to be cut or he can still play some corner for us, too. Well, why isn't he playing corner? I mean, this is ridiculous. To me, anyway, you had a new coordinator.
Yes.
You have a player who was an all-pro player 2 years ago.
Yep.
I want to see if you can play on that level for me. Let me see it with my eyes, or are you a shot fighter? And then I'll move you to safety, and then I'll say that I'm going to move you out because, as he said, very small list of guys who have been able to do this. But show me, with my own 2 eyes, what you still have left at corner. He says, well, he's still going to play some corner for us, too. I would have liked to heard a follow-up there.
Well, what's interesting was the follow-up, Mike.
And that was a John McMullen question, by the way.
Yes.
About that. So I'm interested to see if there's more to that story.
Well, we're going to find out more. But in the meantime, one of the players he was asked about specifically was Quinyon Mitchell. And apparently Quinyon Mitchell has been getting reps, Mike, at outside corner and slot corner. Slot corner, he didn't play in college. Vic Fangio on the rookie first-round draft pick.
He's a talented guy. He's smart, has good football feel. All of that really is more than I thought he had just from watching the college tape. So that's been a plus. And I think he's a guy that we can move around anywhere in the coverage.
That's interesting. He's a guy we think we can move around anywhere. Is that what you want? Are we getting to a point like, we used to think of a guy and he was your, corner. He was your shutdown guy. But are we getting to a part where versatility is entering the football world too? Where you can play slot, outside, safety, corner. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how I feel about that. Because like he said, the list of guys who have gone from corner to safety is not very long. Well, how many guys have been moved all over the field in a successful manner?
I mean, I can't think of many either. I mean, do you consider Malcolm Jenkins a guy who was moved all over the field, or was he just moved from corner to safety?
Well, he was originally a corner, was not very good. They moved him to safety. He was much better. And at the safety position, he did move around like from, on the ball up on the line,
right,
and almost like a linebacker at times. So they did, kind of move him around.
And C.J. Gardner-Johnson is a guy that people have talked about as well, a guy who could play safety and slot corner. So, maybe Vic Fangio's latest variant of his defense is to say, I want guys who can move around and play multiple positions and do multiple things in my defense.
Yeah. I mean, he said, look, he's smart, good football feel, all that stuff. He says, I think he's a guy who can move around anywhere in the coverage part. Well, that means, hey, CeeDee Lamb is on the left side. We want him to roam and follow with him. Okay, that's something that the Eagles generally haven't done in the past.
No, they haven't. But, Fangio is known for being a coach who evolves over the years. But one thing has been consistent with Mike, and I perked my ears up when I heard him make this comment about his willingness to play rookies and young players if they're the best available player. I want you to first hear what Fangio had to say, and then I want to tell you about some of the players that Vic Fangio has given significant playing time within the first 2 years in the NFL.
I'm all for playing the best guys. I think if you looked at my history when we've had rookies, we've played them. And provided they're good enough. We ain't playing somebody just because they're young. If we were an expansion team like I was in two places, we might just throw them out there to see what we got. But we got more serious business here. So if they're worthy of playing, they will play.
So we throw
that was emphatic at the end, by the way.
Yeah. So we throw out the years he was on expansion teams like Carolina and Houston, right? So when Fangio first got to the Colts, he started rookie linebacker Mike Peterson in 1999. The guy went on to lead the NFL in total tackles the next year. He played Marcus Washington his second year in the NFL. He had 8 sacks. Fangio's first year at the 49ers, he started some guy, you might have heard of him, Mike, Navarro Bowman as a rookie. He became an all-pro, first-teamer 3 times. He also played Aldon Smith. He had 14 sacks his rookie year. Also, Fangio, when he was with Chicago, as a rookie, started Leonard Floyd. He had a pretty good career as well. And let's not forget rookie Eddie Jackson started at safety for Fangio. 8 interceptions over 2 seasons with Fangio. So, do we take Fangio and say, look, if he says this young player can play, there's a track record that when he picks them right.
I don't have any doubt on that. I mean, the way he said it at the end, if he's good enough, we're going to play him. Not to mention, the rest of the secondary is littered with young guys. I mean, Eli Ricks and Kaylee Ringo, they're all second-year players. So it's not like he's got a plethora of entrenched veterans. Now, you might say Isaiah Rodgers, he hasn't played in a year, and he only, 2 years of experience. So they don't have a lot of veteran guys to take these spots up right now.
I just thought it was interesting because, like you said, at the end, he said, we're going to play the best guy. He's not worried about people's contracts. He's not worried about what round they're picked in. He says...
It shouldn't be, by the way.
No, you shouldn't. But I like his attitude because he's saying, look, we got bigger things to worry about. We're trying to win a championship is what he's saying. We're not sitting here worried about, guys' feelings and contracts. And I like that. I like that kind of coach.
You would hope that that's the way teams and I don't understand the whole concept of this guy plays because he was. I feel like fans would have more respect if you just said we made a mistake.
Yes, fans would be like, "Hey, he stinks. Get him off the field." That's what fans would say.
Yeah.
Finally, Mike, I want to play for you. So. We have talked about in the past how there have been Fangio disciples, right? Jonathan Gannon, Sean Desai. The league is full of coaches who have used the Fangio system. Well, Vic was asked about, hey, Vic, are you a guy who likes to use analytics? How do you develop your style of coaching? And when I finished listening to his explanation, Mike, I came away with the understanding of why Fangio's system has not always been easily replicated. It sounds like to me, Fangio wasn't sharing many of his secrets. Take a listen.
I love analytics. give me anything you want, and I'll sort through it and use it as I see fit. But I've been doing analytics myself, my own way, for years, and I don't share my process with anybody, and even fellow coaches. So I believe in analytics. I think analytics people miss the boat a little bit on what's important, but I'm not going to tell them what's important. I do it myself.
When you say you do the analytics yourself,
I along with what they give me. I have a system outside of that I use, and I'll use whatever they give me. And
no one else knows your system. None of your proteges have ever.
No.
That's the best answer I've ever heard. I have a system and nobody knows it. So what is it? Nobody knows.
And I haven't shared it with anybody.
And I'm not sharing it. So that's great. So he could either be the evil genius,
right,
or just be like these idiots,
right? Exactly.
Just placating to everybody out there.
I am going to enjoy the 2024 Eagles season, if nothing else, for Vic Fangio.
Yeah, do you use analytics? Sure do. What do? I don't tell anybody. That's my analytics.
Yeah. Did you share with anybody?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking forward to the day after or day the coordinator speaks day.
Yeah, it's usually like Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, it's usually Nick speaks after the game on Monday, then the coordinator on Tuesday, the other coordinator on Wednesday, and then Nick on Thursday.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Or maybe there's one day off in that. All right, coming up, we'll get ready to close out tonight's show. We added something to tomorrow's Happy Hour Friday, and we hope you will all be there. We're going to be at Giuliano's in EHT tomorrow for Happy Hour Friday. Stop out, the whole show, part of the show, a little bit of the show, say hello, have a beer. It's 15 years of the Sports Bash. We're celebrating all summer long. I can't believe I've been doing the show on this station for 15 years. That time's flying by. And we're going to celebrate that all summer long at multiple local establishments. And by the way, thanks to Giuliano's and Bud Light for celebrating the 15 years with us. That's pretty cool that someone said, hey, you've been on the radio for 15 years. Let's do something about it. Well, most Fridays throughout the rest of the summer, we're just going to hang out and do the show on location and have a couple Happy Hour Friday cold ones with you guys. So stop on out tomorrow at Giuliano's. And those who do, you have a chance to win Smashing Pumpkins and Green Day tickets. They're playing together at Citizens Bank Park on August 9th. We're going to give those tickets away every hour. And 10 listeners tomorrow, you get to qualify for 99 bottles. All right? That's what we're doing tomorrow on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.
Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
All right, 5:54, getting ready to wrap up this Thursday show. We'll be back tomorrow at Giuliano's Happy Hour Friday. You know, the Happy Hour Friday show is always fun, but we're taking it on the road, and it's something that we're looking forward to. It's 15 years of the Sports Bash on the road tomorrow at Giuliano's with Bud Light. And you guys out there, now 99 bottles is our big signature event of the year. Normally we take 99 people. We're going to do 99 this year, but people who come out to the event tomorrow, 10 of them will get to enter 99 bottles this year. So essentially you've won something already, right? Kind of, sort of, maybe, right? We're looking forward to tomorrow to see everybody.
Listen, 99 bottles, everybody walks away with something. It's the only contest like it.
That is the only contest like it.
If you qualify for 99 bottles, you are one of the few.
You are one of the 99.
And there only is 99.
All right, so we're out tomorrow at Giuliano's in EHT. So stop out and see us there tomorrow. And what else tomorrow? I don't know. Eagles continue.
Eagles continue. Phillies are back in action tomorrow night.
Yeah.
not as interested in the Phils.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready for Phils. I hate the off night. That's all.
I got you.
All right, they're back tomorrow. I'm back tomorrow. Josh has game night up next here on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great rest of your Thursday night, everybody. We'll have big show tomorrow. A lot of fun tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Talk to you.
Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One with pico and creamy chipotle ranch, and the other with bacon and avocado ranch. Chicken expert since 1990. Taco expert since now. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.